If you would, please call the roll.
So quick.
Chair Ryan,
Present.
Vice Chair Furr,
Present.
Member Shuham, Member Horland. I believe they're stuck in traffic. Member Mateo Bowen. I know she's en route. I saw her last night. Member Dunn,
Here.
Member Rydell, Member Mead,
Here.
Member Caggiano, Member AJ Ryan, Member Newton. He should be online. Member Glassman, and Member Bright Cruz. He should be online too.
All right, if you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
All right, just some brief opening comments from myself and the Vice Chair. I want to begin by thanking all of the folks in the industry who responded to the invitation for today's workshop. This was an opportunity for us as a solid waste authority, but more importantly for the public, to hear from industry on the topics that we've been discussing. We have a very tight schedule, and I thank all of those participants who've agreed to keep their remarks as brief as possible and non-redundant. The goal here today is to be done with each within 15 minutes. I'd like to see if we can get the presentations done in 10 to allow time for any of the members of the Solid Waste Authority to ask questions. And I know that's a big ask, but remember, this is just simply an opportunity to introduce the issues that are important from your perspective that we should consider. And that dialogue continues after today. Because this is a workshop, there'll be no decisions made today. This is really information gathering. I would like to make sure that in your presentations that you are focused on some of the key topics that were of interest to the Solid Waste Authority. Includes the opportunity for us to understand better the regulatory challenges or market barriers that you face in building a program and a system that can fully support the mission of the Solid Waste Authority. Key contractual terms that you find that might be of assistance to the municipalities or the authority. End markets for products and how you participate in that. Your role in the circular economy and working with other partners, and perhaps even partnership opportunities in a general sense. There'll be additional time for us to discuss in future workshops some of the issues surrounding, for instance, 3Ps and other types of opportunities for us to make sure that we as a solid waste authority, municipalities are fully participating in the circular economy as well. Going forward, it will be my suggestion to the members that in our next workshop that we invite some of the big players to tell us how they've been managing solid waste from their perspective, to include the hospital, the school board, the cruise industry, hospitality, and big retailers. We know there's a lot of good work going on out there, and for us, we can't always visualize it. So we'll talk about this towards the end of the workshop, but assuming that's the consensus of the executive committee, we'll focus on those invitations. And I know already, and I think the Vice Chair would agree, that those big players are really prepared and wanting to come forward to talk to us about not only where they are, but the challenges they face and what role they want to play in an overall system. It's important to recognize that while we can do what we can at the end of our driveway, these big players have enormous volumes of solid waste and opportunities for us in the circular economy. So we'll talk about that towards the end. Mr. Vice Chair.
I think you've covered most of it. I'm looking forward to today. I'm looking forward to hearing the kind of underbelly of how everything works and how you all see yourselves as coordinating in some ways with what we're trying to do. As the chair mentioned, when we start thinking of how to work with some of the bigger players like the school board, like the hospitals and everything, how many of you all are hauling for them. And we're trying to figure out how to kind of divert some of that you're hauling to compost and things like that. And we don't know how to do it. I'll be honest. And I think that's going to be part of our big, our questions. Do we need transfer stations at places? How do we, and for those who are, if you have a landfill somewhere else, is there a possibility of you doing composting up there and taking whatever waste you've got and being able to do stuff like that? So I'm looking forward to today. I'm sure we're going to be hearing some new ideas as well. I do want to congratulate Josh. Congratulations for Tuesday. Thanks, Al. Very good. You're welcome. And with that, I think we're ready.
All right. All right, we'll begin with a brief presentation from SCS on the master plan integration with current service providers. Daniel? As Daniel comes up, I do want to thank Clay and all the staff and everybody who's worked with the presenters today as we tried to make sure this was a seamless, smooth transition between, not to waste time. And I know that's required all of the participants to provide earlier than they perhaps wanted to, all of their presentations. And I thank staff from the county for uploading and being ready to go. Daniel, floor is yours.
Real comments quick for the presenters. There's a presenter up on diocese right there in the middle. I'm sorry. That works for the slides.
Okay.
Okay.
Daniel.
Chair, Vice Chair, Executive Director, Council, members of the Executive Committee, Daniel Deitch representing the SCS team. I'm joined by Helen Lee and Leah Richter, also members of the SCS team from Arcadis and from RRS. So I want to commend the Executive Committee for convening this workshop. In terms of the integration, let's see if we can.
Oh, sorry, sometimes that happens once it's shared.
Hey,
That's a
Daniel,
strong assist. Thank you, Helen.
can you move the mic a little closer to you?
Yeah, with pleasure.
Sure.
So as you're aware, we've been issuing a series of white papers to the Executive Committee and the general public, sort of walking through the various elements of the master plan. We started with an assessment of where each ILA community is, what they're doing, also what is the existing infrastructure within Broward County. We focused on the regulatory landscape. We've looked at best practices for education and outreach. And we also, most recently, submitted a needs assessment, right? What kind of infrastructure will be needed going forward? And we don't necessarily say it has to be the authorities or it has to be private, but there's certainly a recognition that there is existing infrastructure and the needs will exist today and will continue to exist as we look out over the planning horizon, which is over a 40-year period. So we identified the need for single stream recycling, managing yard waste, organics, construction and demolition debris in particular. We looked at mixed waste processing, waste energy, and the need for a landfill. And we realized that success really is going to hinge on engagement with the private sector, which is exactly why we're here today, to hear from them. As the chair indicated, we're looking for feedback because we don't want to presume to understand what drives local businesses to meet those needs. So we look forward to hearing the feedback from industry, listening to the discussion today, because ultimately it's going to inform the preparation of the master plan.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Any questions for SCS? Go ahead.
Did
I'm
the,
done.
did the business survey go out already?
I'm not sure where the executive
Todd
director
will
is.
have to answer that. That's separate and apart. I think they had finished the business survey. What's the status of that?
Business survey should be out. We have all the edits completed today. It was in translation the last couple of days. It should be going out by Monday.
Okay, and you'll send that to all of us to share.
Right, once we have everything completed today, yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you to the SCS team. All right, so we're going to start with the industry service providers. We're going to go in order. We're going to start you on a 10-minute clock so you can move through. And as you present, if someone ahead of you has already commented on issues and you can move them more rapidly through without redundancy, that would be appreciated as well. All right, we'll begin with waste management in Broward County. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the millions at home, please.
State of Florida. Pleasure to be here today. So these first couple slides are going to go fairly rapid.
That's it. Is it on?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Just push the big face on it.
There we go.
Okay.
These first couple slides go pretty rapidly. This one here shows the different communities, the 12 different communities that we're a hauler for in Broward County. You can see, including the largest city of Fort Lauderdale, those are the communities that we serve. The next two slides are the 22 cities that we're currently receiving single stream recycling for at our Rooter Recycling facility in Pembroke Pines, which is the majority of the cities in the county. I think I skipped over the first group there. You can see, and I see representatives from many of these cities here today, so it's good to see the representation we currently provide for. So what you're looking at here is a rendering of our, I would call it a campus. It's our Rooter Recycling campus, but it has more than one business unit at it. And that building that you see in the, I'll call it the lower left, is the planned new recycling center that I have an actual drone shot of here in a couple slots. That's where it will be placed. It's just to the west of our current, call it a MRF, or a material recovery facility, is the lower right. And behind that, the big hangar building, which is a huge 350,000 square foot building, is where we have our South Florida container repair shop, as well as part of our, what we call our high grades or commercial recycling operation back there. And then just to the left of that is a smaller building, which is our municipal solid waste transfer station. So there's multiple things going on there, but this new building will actually be a fourth business unit on the same property. So that's why I kind of call it a campus. So let's talk just for a moment about Rooter Recycling, because I think it's one of the best kept secrets, and maybe that's an unfortunate thing of what we have here in Broward County already. Last year, we processed more than 200,000 tons. It was actually close to 214,000 tons of single stream recycling through that plant last year. That was #1 in WM, and we have a presence across the country. It is also a top 5 volume plant in North America already. And the fact that it's a kept secret is kind of good, because it means we're not bothering any neighbors with our operation, right? So it is a blessing to have that here. And last year, more than 89,000 tons came from Miami-Dade County, over 78,000 tons from Broward. But we also service the Keys and the Naples area, Collier County, and you can see the volume there. I didn't put it on the slide, but we also had 6,000 tons last year from Brevard County, because we shut our cocoa plant down to do an $18 million upgrade with new technologies. We had to close that plant for 4 months. So some of that material came down here, and some of it went to two competitor MRFs and elsewhere in the state. So that's not on the slide, but that's what got us up to the 214 last year. Of that, we sold 169,000 tons to market. So one of the things that makes me cringe is when I hear recycling isn't real. We'll tell that to the 160 employees that we have at Rooter Recycling, who work hard every day to make sure that this stuff gets to market. And the difference between the 169,000 and the 213,000 is the contamination and residue that goes into the carts and bins that, after processing, unfortunately still has to be landfilled. So if we can improve our quality, we can narrow that gap, sell more to market, and throw away less, which is a good thing. But if you think about it, without that 213,000, or without that facility, that's all going to the landfill. So we are already doing a pretty good job of helping divert from a landfill. Let's see here. The next bullet point, I already mentioned the size of it is #1 in WM and the top 5 in North America. And it opened as a single stream facility back in 2007. But quite honestly, Rooter is at the end of its life. And it's time to build for the future with new technologies. When we give tours, and we give a lot of tours of Rooter, and we're available to do that upon request at all times, it's a tired plant. It's got older technology, and we're really super excited about what we're building to replace it and move us into the 21st century. Some examples of materials that we recycle there. UBC is a highly technical term that means used beverage container. And same with OCC, which is old cardboard containers. Many of you probably already know that if you're in solid waste. PET plastics is just your water bottle, a clear water bottle, and your HDPE plastics can be a laundry detergent container or a milk jug. There's a couple different types. We also do junk mail, which goes into mixed paper. Newspaper by itself really isn't a thing anymore because there's not enough of it in the stream. So we do what's called a mixed paper, which may have newspaper. It may also have junk mail, and that's the way it gets marketed in today's world. And we also do some polypropylene. We do glass. We do tin cans, and we do commercial grade papers that we collect at businesses throughout South Florida and process. So this is another artist rendering of an $80 million investment we're making into Broward County. And we started this plan 2.5 years ago, and everybody knows what happens with inflation. We're trying to stay under that budget. We might go over it a little bit, but we're trying very hard to keep it at 80 million, but nothing goes down ever. But we're building a building that Broward County can be proud of. I'm certainly going to be proud of it because I think it's going to be the best of the best anywhere, and it'll be right here in Broward County. So this is a recent drone shot, but it's amazing how fast that building is going up. This was taken about 2.5 to 3 weeks ago because the presentations were due to Todd by last Friday. So even in the last week, the prefab metal sides are going up. I went through the building about 1.5 weeks ago for a construction meeting, and it's getting built fast. So we feel that we're going to be materially finished around the end of this calendar year. Then, of course, we have to get regulatory agency approvals from different departments to actually open. We're hoping that window is limited and short, but we think we're going to be ready to go right around Christmas and the holidays. A best guess from myself, I would say probably February by the time we get all our permissions to open, but we're super excited about it. It's going to be 127,000 square foot building. That's inclusive of the administration building. And we're going to have a 1,400 square foot sustainability education space. And that's a really important thing that we're spending a lot of money on. We're working with an outfit that does museums with a lot of wraps and hands-on stuff. So when we bring elected officials or staff or civic groups or school groups into that space, it's going to be super impressive. And from that room, we're going to have a catwalk that goes the length of the building right outside the education room so that people can go out into the plant and we can conduct tours more with like a point and talk about with maybe some headphones because it is kind of loud, so that we can view the whole plant without actually going down into unsafe areas where we would want to keep the public and our tours up above and point and talk about. So its capabilities are going to be 60 tons an hour. That no matter what anybody says, that's on the high end of most plants. Most plants are built to do 35 tons an hour. Single stream recycling is very light compared to MSW or solid waste. So that's a lot of recycling to get through a system. You can get plants of 50, but what gets us to 60 is we're going to have dual lines for redundancy in case one lot side has gone down. We're not completely out of business. We can keep going on the other side. But when both sides are running, that's what gets us to the 60 tons per hour. And the capacity will be able to be increased by at least 28 to 35% to more than 275,000 tons. And why that's important to this body is I know that down the road, you'd like to bring everybody under one contract and have economies of scale and such. This is going to give us that breathing room to have more than just the 22 cities that we have today. And not only for today, but with the population explosion in Florida that we're all well aware of, we're building not only for today, but for down the road. And okay, I'm going to wrap up. So we're going to have 2 trailer tippers because of the location of this site. It's fed by 9 different transfer stations throughout South Florida. So having 2 trailer tippers is going to enable us to get traffic through twice as fast as we only have 1 today. And that's a really important aspect of this because about 85% of our material comes from transfer stations and not direct deliveries into that plant. We're going to have 4 balers, including one dedicated to handling only plastic film. And when I talk about film, I mean like stretch wrap. If you buy a case of water, it's wrapped in a plastic film. That sort of material is going to have its own baler, which is kind of a new industry development. And we're going to have 8 outbound docks for finished product to get out the door, which is, we put a lot of material out the door every day. If you can picture about 20 trailer loads every single day only for cardboard and junk mail out of that plant today. And it's going to go up in the future. And my final comment, my final slide is just to mention that we also are in the construction and demolition space for recycling. We have 2 plants in Broward County. One is on College Avenue in Oaks Road in Davie. The other's in Deerfield Beach. So we also are in that space. At that point, I'll turn it over for questions.
Okay, thank you. 2 quick questions for you. You said that you sell 169,000 tons into market. This body's been very interested in the circular economy. Can you describe for us what that looks like and what the end use products are that are produced out of this?
Excellent question. So everything that's not fiber, meaning all the plastics, all the glass, the tin, the aluminum, that all stays at domestic outlets. And most of our fiber also stays with domestic, but we do export some mixed paper and some cardboard. And why that's important is we're in the peninsula here. We're at the end of the earth here for the United States. So when the mills in the southeast U.S. are full, which does happen, or if they have events where they have a fire or something and they have to close down, the export is our relief valve, that we have confirmed ethical markets abroad to be able to sell to in case the domestic mills can't take it or they don't have the capacity for us. So it's an important thing. We use the Port of Miami to do that, and it's a big part of our solution because it leaves us with alternatives. As far as what it's made into, plastic bottles can be made into clothing. We make all WM uniforms come from PET plastic bottles. They can also be made into carpeting. There's a number of things that can also be turned into a bottle again. So it really depends on the item. I probably don't have time to get into all of it, but some of it is made into the same thing over again, and sometimes it's made into something different.
Okay, at a later date, I know this body will want to have a more intense discussion on the circular economy on this.
Absolutely.
And you all will play a key role in that. One last question. You had mentioned commercial recycling high grade. Can you describe what that is?
Yeah, so that would be like printers. If you go to a company that does printing for companies, it's like office paper. We call it coated book or groundwood, or those types of materials are not part of a single stream curbside residential program, but it's generated by businesses. So we have trucks that go out on the street and pick that up and bring it back, and those are what we call the high grades. Okay. By volume, it's a small part of what we do, but it's another important piece.
All right, thank you. We have two additional comments. We're at the 15-minute mark. Member Mead.
Just very quickly.
Yes.
What's the normal lifespan of one of these facilities?
Excellent question. The equipment typically is about 10 years. The yellow iron or the loaders, the forklifts, that's usually 7 years because these are 2-shift-a-day operations. They run 20 hours a day. The equipment needs to be cycled out, like your balers and your optical sorters. That typically has about a 10-year shelf life. And then obviously, if you take care of the building, it's going to have to be much longer than that. And we're building something that is, 20, 30 years at least. But the equipment will need to be cycled out in about 10.
Thank you. Member Shuham.
Real quick, when you talk about the ability to recycle plastic film, what about grocery bags?
So that would be a plastic film. So initially, we're putting a system in to get it out of the other products because it's considered a contaminant and it messes with the equipment. So initially, we're getting it out for that reason. When we develop that market more, there's only really one buyer in the Southeast, and it's kind of precarious when you only have one buyer. But as that develops, we might be able to add it as something you can put into your bin. We're not there yet, though. Initially, we want to get it out of the residue, out of the products, bale it separately. And we also use an outfit called Titan America. They're in Nedley. And they use our residue for fuel for their kiln. And so that's not going to the landfill. They can't handle all of our residue, but they handle a couple thousand tons a month of our residue. And that's more circular because it's being used to power their kiln rather than being landfilled. So there's a lot of plastic film in that. And so they were interested in purchasing those film bales from us.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sorry, I went over.
No, that's okay. That was to answer questions, so that's great. Coastal waste. And then, what do you have on the, is that what you have on? Oh, sorry, I think we had a new update on, got organized, Florida waste haulers. Apologize, Florida waste haulers. And then from that, fetch waste will be right after. I apologize, gentlemen. It's okay, that's fine.
I thought I was right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, Mr. Storti, Executive Committee members. Thank you for this.
Please introduce yourself first to everybody. I know you, but can you introduce yourself first?
In the mic.
In the mic too, so we can all hear you.
Louis DeVita. That was actually coming next.
Okay, fair enough. But people are already asking, who is this wonderful man?
But anyway, good morning. My name is Louis DeVita. I've been active in all aspects of solid waste and recycling in Florida for 32 years. I assure you I have the credentials to support everything I'm going to say. I'm currently the government affairs consultant for the Florida Waste Haulers and Recyclers Coalition, the FWHRC. The FWHRC is comprised of local, privately held, family-owned and operated haulers and MRF operators. Many of our members grew up in the industry and have over 50 years operational experience in South Florida. The industry collectively and all service providers are key to a successful waste and recycling system. And without input, the SWA is missing a key component. The industry collectively and all service providers are key to a successful waste and recycling system. The decisions and recommendations of the master plan are critical to a successful solid waste and recycling system. They should be reviewed and discussed in a traditional workshop where the industry, municipal and SWA representatives can discuss and formulate recommendations for best management practices and enhance the long-term planning of the master plan. Let's avoid the cliche. Will it look good on paper? Our responses to the suggested areas of discussion, existing infrastructure, planned infrastructure, I will expand on shortly. Existing planned services, barriers to market entry, procurement preferences, key business terms can be addressed cumulatively. Currently, all 28 member municipalities have different levels of service and costs. While I don't believe it could be mandated, we highly recommend a standardized level of MSW collection, recycling collection, and minimizing bulk collection and yard waste collection. I'm electronically challenged, so you'll have to stay with me, please. I could not find a statistic for Broward County, but Florida has the most landscaping companies in the United States with 61,751. Most, if not all, landscape lawn service companies are taking advantage of the municipal collection system. Yard waste disposal should be universally the responsibility of the service provider. If the homeowner has to pay separately for excessive bulk and yard waste, there will be less burden and cost to the municipality, probably resulting in less need, and will encourage the purchase of quality or sustainable products which are not designed to throw away. When I entered South Florida market, I worked for a relatively new roll-off company. We had 3 roll-off trucks and a 100-yard walking floor trailer. Yet we were able to bid on the collection and recycling contract for Lighthouse Point. Over the years, the bid system that once called for only necessary key requirements, the ability to secure a performance bond, provide reasonable limits of insurance, and demonstrate financial responsibility to provide the required equipment and complete the terms of the contract. The simple format stood for decades and has evolved into RFPs, RFQs, RLIs, with insane insurance provisions and offerings. The bid system offered a clear, concise picture and numerous service providers to choose from. Scholarships, complimentary service for events, municipal buildings and properties, municipal construction, and all conceivable in-kind services mask the true price of service available from a qualified service provider. All service levels should be specified to get a complete and accurate understanding of how the taxpayer money is being spent. The procurement process should be structured whereby there's an opportunity for all providers to compete. The Bureau of Economic Statistics and Broward.org, updated on February 10th of 2025, reports currently Broward County has 863,128 housing units. If a standardized service level was adopted and a traditional competitive bid process was restored, the savings could be substantial. If the process I've outlined resulted in saving 10 cents per month per resident, Broward communities could realize over $1 million per year in savings. I assure you, $1 million will buy a lot of in-kind services. The existing infrastructure and planned infrastructure, it is suggested by the consultants that Broward County needs 2 C&D MRFs to handle 450,000 tons per year. I am not going to debate the accuracy of the statement, but I offer a way to document the county's needs going forward. I have helped develop and grow several hauling companies, 7 MRFs, and 2 C&D landfills, which pioneered C&D recycling in Southeast Florida. The Broward County SWA is spending millions of dollars to devise a solid waste recycling plan. C&D recycling has been consistently and openly discussed since 2018 by the SWWG and now the SWA. 7 years has transpired and nothing has been done to attack and defeat the perennially #1 component of the solid waste stream. Waste Management's application for the expansion of Monarch Hill has brought C&D to the forefront for all to see. Mr. Laystrom and Mr. Kerry's presentations have documented the importance of Waste Management's commitment to recycling of C&D. Many numbers and statistics have been presented, but I call your attention to and ask you to accept the Florida DEP statistics, which are compiled from the reports submitted by licensed MRFs in each of Florida's 67 counties. C&D perennially comprises 36% of the solid waste stream, and due to its composition, it makes it the #1 commodity to be in the forefront of recycling. C&D recycling reduces the need for valuable landfill space and does not rely on foreign markets for its recycled components. The Florida DEP reports for Broward County substantiate the need to adopt an aggressive plan to address C&D. In 2022, only 42% of Broward's reported C&D was recycled. In 2023, only 39% was recycled. In 2023, Broward County went backwards. The combined totals equate to approximately 931 tons per month not being processed prior to landfilling. In 2022, 4% of Broward's yard waste was recycled. In 2023, 28%. In 2022, 37% of Broward's white goods was recycled. In 2023, 79%. White goods are primarily metal. Close to 100% should be recycled. Why aren't all C&D bulk yard waste and white good loads being processed prior to disposal? Florida Statute 403.706 mandates, to the extent economically feasible, all construction and demolition debris must be processed prior to disposal, either at a permitted material recovery facility or a permitted disposal facility. The only way to permanently resolve the laxity of compliance with the state statute is passing a county ordinance requiring all C&D per state statute and aggressively including yard waste, bulk, and white goods be processed at any of Broward County's 10 FDEP permitted MRFs, increasing the county's overall recycling rate and complying with the where economically feasible clause. Waste Management's Monarch Hill expansion concessions define the acceptable materials. The county ordinance will require Monarch Hill and Broward County landfill to accept only post-recycled residual waste, which will conserve landfill space and further Broward County's recycling goals at no cost to the county. To ensure the success of the ordinance and eliminate the need for other enforcement, we propose the ordinance contains the following. 1 year from the effective date. 1 year from the effective date of the ordinance, all Broward County FDEP permitted C&D MRFs are required to achieve a minimum 50% recycling rate. A minimum 50% recycling rate must be maintained annually thereafter as a condition of their permit. The documented information of the material received and recovered will allow existing MRF operators the ability to determine if expansion is warranted, capital investment is necessary, and the ability to secure additional equipment. Most importantly, it will enable the SWA to determine if the current existing infrastructure is capable or there is a need for additional facilities and locations prior to spending millions of dollars. To ensure compliance with the ordinance and the requirement to obtain final inspection and a certificate of occupancy, all building permittees will be required to complete a construction and demolition debris recycling certification form, which contains the permit number, name of the permittee company, permittee address, project address, permittee contact person, phone number, email, total yards or tons of C&D generated, the Broward permitted MRF used for processing, scale house weight ticket numbers or roll-off provider and ticket numbers if applicable.
All right, you're at 11 minutes right now.
I'm getting close.
That's okay.
I'm getting
Go ahead,
close.
just giving you, because you may have some questions.
Thank you. On the record acknowledgement of C&D started on December 13th, 2018 with the Arcadia study. Quote, common short-term strategies and actions for all scenarios. Arcadia requires C&D bulky waste, mixed bulky waste, yard trash to be processed prior to disposal. You recognize that one? April 25th, 2024, a garbage crisis we can solve. Quote, bulk garbage and construction, demolition, vegetative debris achieves high rates of diversion from landfills and incineration and provides recycle reuse opportunities. In fact, Florida law requires, to the extent economically feasible, all construction and demolition debris must be processed prior to disposal, either a permitted material recovery facility or a permitted disposal facility. April 30th, 2024, the SES Engineers Waste Characterization Study Final Report. Quote, develop programs to divert C&D bulky waste. February 10th, 2025, the Future Needs Assessment Workshop. Quote, construction and demolition debris, C&D ordinances, education, green building policy, etc. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the Executive Committee, how much more do you need? You have available a simple action that will immediately address the number one component of the waste stream and the number one for potential recycling. There is no reason to procrastinate any longer. The master plan draft, the final plan, or ratification will not change the facts. I urge you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, to act immediately. Request the Board of Broward County Commissioners to pass the aforementioned ordinance to ensure all materials specified are reduced and recycled without further gratuitous delays. Thank you.
Thank you. Please hang on for a second. I also want to direct the members' attention to your January 31st, 2025 correspondence outlining much of what you've discussed here today, and I appreciate the materials. Any questions from the members? Member Shuham.
Really for Mayor Fair, has the city, as a county, contemplated these types of statutes previously or ordinances? And can you just give us a little history?
We're in the process of doing it now. We're going to wait till the.
You ask and they respond.
See, that was
So easy.
We're going to wait till the master plan, but we'll do it.
But this is a good point. Your suggestion is that it should happen now so that the data that can be generated from these MRFs will help us to understand both the volume and future investment and infrastructure needs. The suggestion of waiting until we're completely done the master plan, I take it you would suggest is a little too slow for us.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the master plan, the ratification of the master plan is not going to change the facts.
No, it's
You know, we have too much material that's not being processed. We have 10 fully permitted MRFs that are available to take the material. So let's attack the stuff we can attack right now, okay, and deal with the other stuff.
Yeah.
The data that we get will help the SWA decide when and if and how much they need to spend for additional facilities.
Well, I'm sure the county's listening. They've already made decisions on solid waste outside the master plan, so I'm sure they'll welcome this opportunity as well. Member Caggiano.
50% number requirement to get a permit. Can you just go a little bit more into that?
No, what we want to do is 1 year from the date of the passage of the ordinance, we want all MRFs to be able to document they were able to recycle 50% of what they brought in. And then as a condition of the permit going forward, every year they have to document that they recycled at least 50%. I can tell you from my own experience, 60 to 70% is not a reach. It can be done. But let's set it where, yeah, exactly. And of course, these numbers will help the MRFs when they see what the incoming flow is. Then they can make a decision as to upgrading their equipment, putting in new equipment, the capital expenditure. And with those documents, they can go get the financing that they need to get the additional equipment. So it all works in.
Thank you.
Okay.
Vice Chair.
Just real quick, I just want to say your input has been very valuable in crafting this ordinance. We're in the middle of doing it. We think it should be done as soon as possible. And it's a matter of trying to get it all right.
Okay.
All right, we look forward to seeing that new ordinance on the next county commission meeting.
Oh, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, fetch waste.
Good morning. I'm Ken Brown with Fetch Waste Solutions. We are a 50-50 joint venture between Pepsi, who you all know, and Freepoint Ecosystems, who I will talk about and help you, there we go, help you understand who they are during this presentation. What I'm here to discuss is a solution to double the county's recycling rate that we will do at our own cost, because our goal is to transform waste into resources. We'll do this by reducing landfill waste and the necessity of incineration. What we would like to do is build an MSW sorting facility at our own cost. And what's unique about our model is that our joint venture partners, Pepsi and Freepoint, are also our offtake partners. So these are two huge credit-worthy customers who will guarantee the purchase of what we remove from the municipal solid waste for a fixed amount of time. So that's a unique model. So the commodity risk is removed. And what we want to do is we estimate that about 85% of what we would remove from the MSW would go to these two companies. That includes Pepsi taking the PET and the aluminum cans, and Freepoint taking all of the other mixed plastic. So we talked about earlier with waste management, what do you do about the grocery bags and the films? Freepoint takes all of that, and it will take it under a long-term agreement, and none of that would end up in landfills or in incinerators. So what?
Just hang on one second. Can you just ask them to either close that door just to make it easier so everybody, a little bit of noise from out there. Thank you, Filthy Organics, for that.
And thank you. So what normally would, a number of products that would end up in landfills actually is going to be diverted now. And we estimate this will increase the recycling rate for about 20% above where it is now. So from about 20% to about 40% in the county. The remaining recyclables, the metals, the OCC, paper, and so forth, would go to the spot markets. We believe that's about 15% of the waste that would be in the MSW. We would also create an organic stream, and I think that's important to understand as well, that the organic stream is something that we can do. We're not offering a solution for it, but we can create that organic stream that can go to composting or can go to anaerobic digestion. And unfortunately, the remaining residue would still go where it typically goes right now, which is to an incinerator or to landfill. So What are the economics in this? Well, first of all, why do we want the MSW? Because it's full of recyclables. We've looked at the recycling and the waste composition studies that have been done on Broward County, and there's a lot of recyclables in it, and we want that. And again, we're willing to come in and put our money there to go and get it out. What we'd like to do is build a facility that is capable of handling 400,000 tons a year of municipal solid waste. And we would build that any place where it makes sense to aggregate 400,000 tons. Transfer station, a landfill, a waste to energy facility, or a standalone facility next to one of these type of facilities. We'd like to be able to do it on county land if we can, if there's property available, but we're not opposed to finding land ourselves that we would adjacent or close to some of these facilities. We would then build this. We'd build this, and then we would sell, of course, what we pull out of the solid waste stream to Pepsi and Freepoint, as well as to the spot market. And then all of the savings that have realized by what we remove, of course, would go to the county, and we would enter into a revenue sharing agreement with the county for the recyclables. So it should be a net gain for the county in terms of less material going to landfill, less material going to incineration, and revenue coming in. Now, I think it's important for us to talk about our partners. Everybody knows who Pepsi is. I'm not going to get into debate with the Coke people here today, but Pepsi is a very, very large worldwide company with reach all corners of the earth. Freepoint is a subsidiary of Freepoint Commodities, which is a mid-scale trading platform that has been around for decades and also generates billions of dollars in revenue. They see an arb between the cost of waste plastic and producing that waste plastic into making it into what's called pyrolysis oil, or the original resin, and selling that under long-term contracts to companies like Shell and Dow. And we are putting our money where our mouth is, and we have built a $250 million advanced recycling facility in Hebron, Ohio. So this facility is currently in operation and making pyrolysis oil. And also at that facility, we have a very large sorting line. So I know you all are going to ask, well, where are you doing the sortation? We are doing it in Hebron, but there are other sortation facilities out there that do the same thing that we are proposing. I know that you, particularly you, Executive Director, are familiar with the ones in California, and we're using the same equipment providers. BHS is one of our partners. Van Dyke is one of our partners, and we're using Van Dyke at our facility in Ohio. And I'm kind of skipping through some of this so we can get to the questions, but you can see how this typically works. You bring in the material, we remove the HDPE, the PET, the UBC, all the acronyms that you've heard here earlier today. And then the organics and the residue streams are what leave the facility. Again, this is just how these facilities work, what's removed, and the kind of equipment that we use. This is not an undertaking for the meek. We're going to spend a lot of money to build one of these facilities. And we believe, because we've got the long-term agreements in place, that it merits the investment. This is the BHS design facility in San Leandro, California. I'm sure that some of you are aware of that. Santa Barbara's got one that's very similar to it. And then this is what we are doing in Hebron, Ohio. By the way, I'm extending an invitation to anyone who wants to come up and see our advanced recycling and sorting facility in Ohio to do that. Hebron is about 30 minutes from the Columbus airport. So it's an easy trip. And again, this is our equipment there. And this is basically the summary of how we do this. We would ask the county to pay us a processing fee, but we offset that with basically when we reach the point where we've kind of you get all of the revenue for the recyclables, everything we do. And then when you reach a point where we fix this, where it's, everybody's broke even, then we split again the amount out of the recyclables. And so it kind of depends. We have to do a little bit more work before we can tell you what all that is, but we'd like the opportunity to do that work and then see if there's an agreement to be made. I think that's important. We don't want you guys to come out and say, hey, you didn't tell us about this now. No, I'm telling you right now that's how we would do it. And then again, does MSW sorting work? I know, Executive Director, you're familiar with MSW facilities, and they do work. What's happened in the past is there have been a lot of these kind of companies that had other plans for the material, like they were going to convert that into sustainable aviation fuel or into things like this. We're not doing that. We're just taking it right back to making more plastic, so it's very circular on the Free Point side, and then on the mechanical side to, of course, to Pepsi for the aluminum cans and for the PET. So there's really no risk there, and this meets all of the requirements that you guys have established of what your goals are for recycling here in the county. And this kind of outlines our next steps. What we'd like to do is talk about it with you guys, get some more information on volumes, a little more information on what the composition is of the materials that's in the municipal solid waste. What's interesting about this is we're not asking the constituents to change any behavior. It's, I know you guys want to teach and educate, and there's money in what just passed from Monarch Hill for education, all well and good, but there's only so much that's going to happen, and a lot of it is still going to end up in the solid waste, and that's why we want to go after it. So thank you. I tried to make this as thorough and brief and not to get a warning from the bench. So I'm here to take your questions.
You did great. You got it right at 9 minutes, so good job.
Thank you.
Member Shuham, just for the members, all of these PowerPoint slides will be provided, have been provided in a Dropbox, but we'll make sure the updated ones are provided to all the members as well. And they're online as well. Go ahead, Member Shuham.
So I'm very impressed, but also question, why aren't you taking all of the plastic film that Waste Management has?
Oh, we do want that.
So are we making a match here today?
Yes. We actually have agreements with some waste management facilities where we take their residue. So the residue, things like the plastic films and so forth, it ends up going to incineration in California, for example. We're working with them now to take those kind of that kind of material.
Because we just heard how Waste Management had one taker,
Right.
but they had more than that taker needed. So, I mean, I would love to see you guys talk.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have a long history with Waste Management. So
Okay.
I actually sold them their Riviera Beach C&D facility. So
And the resin that's produced
Mhm.
is used for fuel, I'm assuming, correct?
no, it is used to make new plastic.
Okay,
So it
explain
is
that to us.
Circular, sure. Certainly. We use what is a process called pyrolysis, where we basically take the plastic and we melt it and we convert it through a process back into the original resin that you use to make plastic. So in other words, this isn't a one and done. This can be done over and over and over again to make new plastic, reducing the amount that you have to rely on fossil fuel.
So two questions. I remember years ago, those types of plastics, recycled plastics, could only be used in certain types of secondary products because of the concerns about contaminants and things like that. Is that no longer the case?
That is the case for mechanically recycling plastics. So the PET bottles and so forth, that can only be used in other types of non-food-based products.
Right.
What we are doing is we're taking it back to the original material, and it can be used to make anything.
And are there concerns with the impact or air pollution in your process?
So we'd have a complete life cycle analysis on the chemical recycling side of what we're doing. That's been done by a reputable firm called Eco Engineers, and we are happy to share that with you and have a discussion about it. I mean, it is the impact is considerably less than making new plastic
What
Well-
about compared to incineration?
or incineration.
Okay. And Todd, are you familiar with all this?
Yes.
And do you need authorization to go to Ohio?
Yeah, he will need authorization, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Thank
Right.
you.
So Member Rydell.
Thank you. Just, I'm a little curious about the business structure real quick.
Mhm.
Who do you work for?
I work for Fetch.
Okay.
I came from Freepoint Ecosystem.
I'm very familiar with Freepoint. When you sit on this board, they're obviously have a national footprint.
Yeah.
Is the business model for Fetch, because I'm not so familiar with that and I haven't seen that company. I looked at the slideshow prior to coming to that. I loved it. But my question is, does the entity Fetch have any current business dealings in the state of Florida?
No,
Okay. And then are you ultimately kind of like a GC and you're subbing things out to Freepoint and Pepsi?
that
Hate
is,
to use that analogy, but that's what it appears to me. And I just want to know if that's kind of what we're talking about.
so we will do the design, Fetch will do the design of all of the sorting facilities. Freepoint Ecosystems will do the design of all of the pyrolysis or the advanced recycling facilities.
Is Fetch an operational company? When I
Yeah,
say operational, I mean, are you operating actual facilities or you're
we are not.
subbing that portion out to other entities?
Yeah, right now it's all being subbed out through Freepoint.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions from the members? Oh, sorry, Vice Chair.
So you're kind of using the old dirty Murph.
That's correct. This is a dirty Murph.
That's exactly what, okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thanks.
All right, and when you said revenue back to the county, you meant the small C county, since they like to speak in big Cs and big mayors and little Cs. You meant the solid waste authority, right?
You know, I'm still trying to figure out how this all works in this
Yeah, we-
county. So,
We haven't figured out the
I am
county.
extremely perplexed.
The county's flush with some funds now from Monarch Hill, so they'll be paying for all of this. So, all right, thank you, sir,
Thank
for your
you.
presentation. All right, Waste Connections. Good morning.
Turn it on.
There you go.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Grant Smith. I'm here representing Waste Connections. Today, I'm with my colleagues, Kurt Salak, who is Director of Business Development for Waste Connections, and Mark Wexler, who many of you know. Today is going to be more of about, from our standpoint, an introduction of Waste Connections to the solid waste industry here in Broward. We don't make as much noise as some of the other companies, but we have been here for decades. So Waste Connections, I know it's really small to see, but Waste Connections is a national footprint company. It operates in 45 states, has over 25,000 employees, has operations all over the state, all over the country, and in Canada. Waste Connections is a full service company. And when I say that, it means it's fully integrated. It has hauling, disposal, recycling, and this is its business model around the state. Some of you may know Waste Connections some of you may know Waste Connections by different names. It's changed names, and that's been part of the identity issue that we've had. But in this market, decades ago, it started as Allied, and then it was part of BFI, and then and then I actually came out of Choice Environmental. That was a big player here. And in fact, Choice was the first non-waste management transfer station for MSW permitted in Broward County ever, outside of what were then the two burners. And then Choice was acquired by Progressive, and then Progressive was renamed into Waste Connections. That's our history here in Broward County. The company has, I have to tell you, as somebody who works as an outside person to them, this is truly one of the best clients you can have in one of the best companies. They are an incredible group to work for and with. And I don't say that lightly, and I wouldn't say that about all of my clients. But here in Broward County, what Waste Connections has here in Broward County, we have a transfer station in Deerfield Beach, which is just to the north of the old Wheelabrator North facility. Waste Connections has a transfer station in the city of Pembroke Park. And that is where we take the disposal from some of the cities here. And some of those cities are Hollywood, Hallandale, Deerfield, Pembroke Pines. But what's important about this, and this is, I think, one of the things that everybody struggles with here, is that, as you know, the current burner is limited to 750,000 tons or 800,000 tons a year, whatever that number is. But the county produces a lot more waste than that. What I am here to say today is that we are an industry player here in Broward County with hundreds of jobs and a lot of disposal capacity. And as this organization develops its plan, I think you recognize that you have to rely on things other than burners. And there's going to be diversion with recycling, but there's going to be a component of landfill. And we are here to help with that component of landfill. We also, in the South Florida market, have a lot of assets. We do a lot of hauling out of Miami-Dade County. We have a hauling operation in Opelika. We have a hauling operation in Hialeah. We have transfer stations in Opelika. We have a transfer station in Miami. We have a few in Miami. And recently, which is a new development for our company and for Miami-Dade County, we just signed up to a 30-year agreement with the county to rail waste out of Miami-Dade County directly from our facility in Hialeah to our landfill in, I can't even pronounce the name of the city. It's the Heart of Florida landfill. It's between Tampa and Orlando, kind of in the triangle to the north of that. And that'll go a direct rail connection. So we're developing those rail capabilities on behalf of Miami-Dade County, and we're currently contracted to take 800 tons a day from them on rail to our Heart of Florida landfill. And so we are taking our waste today from Deerfield Beach and from Pembroke Park to the Jed landfill in Osceola County. That landfill has a gas to electric energy generation facility there. And that's where we take the waste, it degrades and turns into electricity. This is our footprint here in the state. As you can see, it's heavily concentrated in Miami-Dade County, Broward, and in Central Florida. We also have operations, mostly a MRF operation and hauling operations down the West Coast, Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, and a lot of these smaller beach communities in Pinellas and in Hillsborough County. This is a map of where we operate here in South Florida. As I mentioned before, the Deerfield Beach Transfer Station, Pembroke Park, Opelika Recycling, First Place Recycling, and our hauling operations. Some of you were asking about the capabilities. Most important is that we have the capabilities to not only have expansion, and we're doing an expansion right now in Deerfield Beach, but we also have the ability to go for about 40 years of life in the landfills that we have here. So we can be an integral component of your future going forward. As I said, from my standpoint and from our company's standpoint, I think from your standpoint as well, is that the landfill has to be part of this solution. Thus far, we have been an independent, so to speak. We're not part of the ILA. We are part of the entire system because of what we take from the communities that aren't part of the ILA. But we want to be part of this system going forward. And that's the most important thing for us to be able to represent today, is that for us, recognizing that we're here and that we have a viable business, we have a thriving business, and we are here to be a partner and part of you going forward. So thank you.
All right, thank you. We have some questions. Member Furr.
Thank you. Good presentation. Thanks, Grant.
Thanks.
Am I to understand you have a new landfill being started? Is that what you were?
No.
Oh,
No. So the Heart of Florida landfill was something we acquired a few years ago. It was new to us a few years ago, but we are
Now you're going to be using it for
for
Miami-Dade.
rail. That's right. We've never taken shipments from South Florida to that just because of the distance.
Right.
But because it has a direct rail connection from on the CSX railway, I don't want to get too
I was
complicated,
about
but
to ask which railway. So
it's
thank you.
it's on CSX.
And you already have direct rail all the way to there now.
So what we're doing right now, we are building the rail spur. We
Okay,
have a
so you
rail
haven't built
spur.
a spur.
We have a rail spur. We have a rail spur into our Hialeah facility right now. We're upgrading that.
Okay.
That was an existing rail spur. And right now, we're also in the process of building a short spur from the CSX yard in Wildwood to our facility in, I think it's
Whatever the name
Sumter
is.
County. Lake Panisofsky.
There you
So, sorry.
Okay.
And so that's going to be a short rail line from there to there.
So is there capacity there to do composting at that landfill?
Kurt, I think composting, is there, Kurt, come on. This is Kurt Salak. He's the Director of Business Development. I know that we have talked about the ability to compost. I don't know that we're doing any composting at Heart of
Go ahead
Florida.
and introduce yourself.
We have a partner next
Name?
door. My name's Kurt Salak. I live up in Clearwater. We have a partner next door to the landfill that we work with some composting with, but we don't do anything directly on our landfill at this time.
Would it be something in the future you might think of?
Yeah, we can certainly look into it.
Because you've got 6 pretty big, I mean, it looks like you're taking about 500,000 tons of garbage right now, right? And if it was source separated, I mean, those cities, I think, would like to see composting or at least some diversion. So it's something that it'd be interested to hear if that's
I
possible.
think certainly we have talked about,
Into the microphone, please.
I'm sorry.
Thanks, Fran.
Certainly we have talked about if there is the volume. Right now, there's no volume for composting, right? But if there was the volume, certainly there could be a business model made of it. We're not currently doing it, but if Broward County were to come up with a plan to do composting where there was a dedicated amount of tonnage that was coming out, we would certainly consider dedicating part of our place to
And
that.
Miami-Dade didn't ask for that.
Correct.
Okay.
No.
We do have the footprint to accommodate composting.
Okay, great. Good to hear.
All right. Any other questions from the members? All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks
for your
very much.
presentation.
Appreciate it.
Republic, and then after that, Coastal Waste.
Good morning, Mike Rosopoulos, Finance Manager with Republic Services.
Morning, Jean-Pierre Troiro, Municipal Manager, Republic Services. Make sure I know how to operate this thing. So I'm going to deviate a little bit from the presentation. For sake of the purpose of this meeting today, I think that, it would be more appropriate to stay local.
A little bit into the mic there, JP. Thank you.
It would be more appropriate to stay local. Initially, I put a few things concerning, Republic Services overall. But looking around the table, most of you, know who we are, how strong we are. Okay. And I'm going to move forward from there. Okay. This is available to all of you. Okay. I'm sure that as mentioned earlier, you can have that in your packets and review afterwards. That's it for now. Locally, who we are. Okay. We are primarily a waste hauler in Broward County, but we can be much more than that. We have also a MRF that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. We have 110 trucks available, okay, to service the whole Broward County. Headcount stands at 211 employees, including drivers. We have 20 technicians working on our trucks on a daily basis, okay? And we run about 401 routes between commercial, industrial, and residential on a weekly basis. For the purpose of this meeting, I thought that, like I said, it would be more appropriate to focus on the MRF asset that we have currently. This building sits in 849 and 901 Southwest 21 Terrace in Fort Lauderdale. It's 2 buildings. Currently, a class 1, a class 3 permitted facility, which we'd like to eventually move into a class 1 facility. Right now, we have a lot of our engineers, with public services and some local, working on it, to see if we can get it to destination. We accept material from all the waste haulers in Burke County. We sort and bale cardboard and to help, divert that, from the landfill. Currently 70 tons per month and growing. We sort and bale white paper. Come again? No, it's not in this slide. That's
We can get it.
we can get to you, it's not a problem at all, okay? That we divert from landfill. So basically, what we'd like to do, what we'd like to see happen is that, the county, if we can, get the support of the county, to get, the MRF to destination, so we can get into a class 1. So we'll be much more helpful to Broward County. And that's what we have to talk about this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we have, the buildings themselves are 77,000 square feet. They're 2 buildings. We're in the process of investing in sorting equipment. Right now, we have minimal sort. We have an eddy current. We have a trommel, and we're kind of hand sorting right now, but we're looking to move forward, especially with the group in the direction you guys are going. And yes, we have engineers right now looking at going to class 1. There's some challenges with, as you know, when you have residential neighborhoods around your facilities. So, I mean, there's enough technology out there with systems that take the odor out of the facility. Yeah, so we are investing heavily into this MRF to try to become part of what the direction this group is going into.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from the members? Member for.
This is Republic, right?
Correct.
Yes.
So don't you guys have a land? You all also have a landfill.
Cedar Trail.
Which one is it?
Cedar Trail.
Cedar
Up
Trail.
north.
Okay. Do you take a lot of stuff from here up to there?
Transportation's kind of prohibitive at this point,
Okay.
but we do take some tonnage up there.
So most of the stuff that you're doing, you're sorting it and then selling it out?
OCC mainly and white paper at this point.
Okay. So you're kind of specific. I was thinking you all don't you guys do a lot of hauling as well though? No?
Yeah, we haul. We have 100, we have 80, 85, 90 wraps on the street today. We haul in Broward County. We hold 4 franchise municipal contracts currently. We do take some of that waste stream into our facility.
Okay.
So what we can.
Or do you take some of that to the incinerator?
Some goes, yeah, some flow control. We're managing to that ILA group.
Okay.
And we're taking some of the residential waste stream into our facility and sort what we can.
Okay. I'm going to ask the same question because you do have a landfill. Is there room there for composting up there?
We are looking at that.
Looking into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That seems to be the direction.
Yeah, I think we'd be, if it's possible that everybody who's taking stuff out of Broward County is able to do that at some point, that'd be good.
Oh, definitely. We'll be open to that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
So we want to be a player again in this group, and that's why we're coming to the table.
I mean, everybody knows how strong we are when it comes to hauling. So, with a little bit support from the county and, land made it available. So I'm sure that Republic would really strongly consider being one of major players.
Okay. Can you tell me which cities you're involved with?
Oh, certainly. Sunrise, Coconut Creek, Margate, and Weston.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
All right, any further questions from, Member Mead?
Yes, thank you. You've expressed some aspirations that you want to get more involved. Do you have the financial backing to be able to do that?
And we're a $15 billion company. Yes.
Yeah.
We are the second largest, service provider when it comes to waste in
As
America.
with any company, the models have to make sense.
Mhm.
It's a partnership. You need return on your asset. Of course. Shareholders will probably help.
Member Materball.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question for you is, and I've heard from everyone who spoke before you that everyone has a landfill. I just want to know, how big is your landfill, and do you all have the capacity to
We're in the process of getting an expansion.
Okay.
As far as the size goes, I'm not quite sure. It's managed by another group up north.
Will it be able, say for instance, we do move forward with this vendor, do you have the capacity to meet our needs?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And we're looking for additional. Again, it's got to make good financial sense for us.
Follow up, there has been a lot of conversation in regards to a circular economy. Is there opportunities for you all to invest in ensuring that that industry, if working with us, you would encompass this type of industry within your waste transfer, et cetera?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Especially with this asset we have here, there's a lot of potential there. That's why we've hired an engineering company to look at permitting it.
Perfect, thank you.
You are.
Yes, and I don't know if in later conversation, I'm sure, looking at the presentation that we put together, you'll see our capabilities with our polymer centers and what we do. We're probably number one when it comes to circularity. So, I expect, next time we meet, if you have some questions, targeted questions in that regard, we'll be able, to guide you through and answer those questions as well.
It raises a good point. I'll turn to member right down in a second, but it raises a good point to all the presenters. As you hear the questions today, even if you've already presented and you have information, please submit to the executive director any updates on slides or data that you presented that maybe wasn't part of slides. Feel free to do that and continue to add to the information inventory through the executive director, be passed on to all the members. Okay. Member Rydell.
Chair, this was very similar to your comment. I was just going to ask all the presenters here today. Now, the person presenting may not be the person that's the go-to for us for more technical information. That's just the person you think speaks the best. But I would ask whoever you want all of us reaching out to on this list of up to, L, I'd said it to Todd, make sure we have those direct contact informations for the company so we could all do our independent investigation, whether it's who spoke today or who it's the operational manager here that can maybe answer more technical questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank
you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank
All right.
you.
Coastal Waste and then M&M Thrift second cycle.
Good morning, John Casagrande, Coastal Waste and Recycling. With me today is my South Florida Area President, Trevor Black, and our Director of Municipal Marketing, Ed Peters. I'll make this quick. So I went, let's see, which one? Oh, there we go. So coastal by the numbers real quick, we'll stick to the parts that we're really concerned with here, but we roll out 695 trucks a day. We service 18 municipalities. But if you look at the center of that slide, we operate 18 post-collection facilities, 11 material recycling facilities. We operate 6 transfer stations. We own 1 landfill. We process 2.1 million tons a year of material. We have a recovery rate of 68%. We have 2.5 million square feet of processing capacity. This is our footprint. We operate in 3 states. We operate in the state of Florida. We operate in South Carolina, and we operate in Georgia. Our home and most of our business is in Florida. And it's safe to say that no one processes more material than Coastal Waste and Recycling in the state of Florida. We were started 7 years ago. We're a young company, but we started on the premise that we don't own a landfill. So the more we process, the less that we have to pay the competitors to dump at their landfill. I'm going to turn the rest of this presentation over to Trevor, who operates our South Florida facility. Coastal, closer to home, these facilities were built in Broward County, and I think they'd be an absolute great asset to the authority in helping you all achieve your sustainability goals.
So as far as our existing infrastructure goes, this is our Broward Material Recovery Facility where we are currently processing C&D. The facility capacity is 9,000 yards per day. We do have available capacity of 60%. The facility size is 5 acres. Currently, we are recycling wood, non-ferrous, ferrous metals, plastics, as well as concrete. This is our South Broward Transfer Station in Davie. The facility capacity is 2,000 yards per day. The available capacity currently is 30% on a 1 acre footprint. And then this is our Pompano Recycling Facility in Pompano Beach, where we are currently processing yard waste and cardboard and shredded office paper. The current capacity is 2,880 yards per day, with 60% of that being available. We do have the first electric EC230 excavator here because we do believe in sustainability.
And then planned infrastructure. At this same facility that we just looked at, we are building a brand new commercial MRF for single stream recycling. It's going to be about a $20 million investment. It's state of the art. It utilizes a lot of AI technology to take the human error out of recovery so we can maximize our recovery. We do project this opening in 2026. We will be utilizing all electric equipment here as well, and it'll have capacity of about 500 tons per day. And this is just an overview of the facility. And then our additional planned infrastructure, like JC mentioned, we were built on recycling. So here are the current projects that we are working on. As mentioned in the previous slide, we are investing in a single stream processing facility in Pompano Beach for the expected opening in Q1 of 26. We recently invested about $9 million in a state-of-the-art C&D MRF in Hope Sound. We are investing $10 million in a facility in Vero Beach to recycle C&D. Another $10 million for a C&D facility in Fort Myers, and then $8 million in a commercial MRF in Fort Myers as well. And then locally, $30 million. We are building CNG infrastructure in Pompano Beach to convert our existing fleet over to CNG. And then currently, we've invested $2 million into EV waste and recycling equipment. So as mentioned, we do have the first electric excavator in the state of Florida, and we are also the first private company to purchase an all-electric waste truck, which is servicing Broward County right now. And then closing the loop, our end markets for our products. So we currently recycle yard waste, wood, aggregates, rock, ferrous metals, non-ferrous metals, cardboard, and paper, which are currently going to the local economy. Dan Griffin Sod and Atlas P handles our yard waste. We own an aggregate company as well where we process aggregates and then recycle it and then resell it as road base. We also own several metal processing facilities to close the loop for our downstream recyclables, and then currently processing cardboard and paper and selling it both domestic and export. And then when it comes to barriers to entry, the biggest barrier to entry, we believe, is capital. So our equity sponsor is Macquarie Asset Management. They're about a $600 billion fund. And the reason this is so important is they have over 15 years of experience in the solid waste sector. You guys can go through this slide, but what I want to highlight on the bottom is we've already built a lot of infrastructure in Broward County, and we are willing to continue to make significant investment under a long-term contract to continue recycling. Questions?
Great, very efficient. Thank you for that. Member Shuham.
Great presentation. Thank you. So the 68% is very impressive. Where the 32% to a landfill, which landfill?
We use a network in Arcadia, Okeechobee, and Glades.
And how are you getting the material there?
We have tractor trailers transporting it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from members? Vice Chair?
Thanks. Thanks, nice presentation. What cities are you collecting from? I know you're doing Broward County.
So we're currently collecting in Broward County, Pompano Beach, Wilton Manors, the unincorporated Broward County area, town of Davie, Cooper City, Coral Springs.
Okay. And I saw on the bulk waste, it looked like you still had 60% capacity so that right now you've got 2,800 tons capacity.
No, so that was for the MRF in Broward County.
Okay.
There's 60% capacity on 9,000 yards per day. So we have a lot of capacity to handle the county's needs for C&D recycling.
Yeah, I'm looking mainly at bulk waste. I mean, more at yard waste.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been to your facility, so I saw.
Yep.
I've seen.
Yes, we still have continued capacity to handle bulk waste and yard waste.
Okay, good. Good to know.
Member right now.
Just briefly, and you attribute to obviously all the capacity that, the capacity availability just to not having enough hauling contracts ultimately locally. Is that fair?
I mean, as you know, a lot of the waste is flow controlled in Broward County. So we pull our waste from the open markets where we can take it. Yes.
Okay. I just think the capacity availability is pretty astonishing.
And just to highlight, when we build our facilities, we build them at the maximum capacity possible because we want to be able to take waste in the future. And that's, marginal investment further to go from, call it 1,000 tons a day to 3,000 tons a day. So we want to be prepared to take further waste.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the members? Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Thank you. M&M Thrift and then Filthy Organics.
Okay.
Should we go? You want to go?
You're fine.
We're good.
Yeah, we can go ahead and start.
I'm pretty grassroots anyway. Sal Ferrugia, M&M Thrift, second cycle. Okay. Good morning, members of the Solid Waste Authority and industry experts. I'm honored here today to discuss how charitable textile and household goods donation centers can contribute to a more sustainable Broward County while reducing the volume of items sent to the landfill. First one is Second Cycle's role in sustainability. Second Cycle Charitable Household Donations collects textiles and household items on behalf of Vietnam Veterans of America at no cost to the charity. Once collected, these items are sold to M&M Thrift Management for resale in their thrift stores, ensuring that they are repurposed and not sent to the landfill. Second Cycle operates two types of donation centers. The first is traditional bricks and mortar. It's ideally a second, third generation type building, an old gas station, a 7-Eleven, old bank buildings. However, due to Broward County's strong real estate market, these locations are very difficult to find. And when they are found, it's really financially not feasible because the rents are just high. So to address this, we developed a second model, a staffed mobile donation center to be located in parking lots. I stress this is not a closed bin. This model provides a cost-effective, flexible solution that generates ancillary income for the landlords while making it convenient to the residents. Our ideal locations are grocery anchored shopping centers where the residents can drop off their donations and go on with their shopping. This is sustainable on many fronts by reducing vehicle trips, emissions, as well as reducing waste. A little bit about the importance of textile recycling. Textile recycling is a growing environmental concern. Millions of tons of clothing and textiles end up in the landfill each year in the U.S., contributing to pollution and resource depletion. Second Cycle mitigates this issue by offering structured, community-driven solutions that keep textiles out of the landfills while creating jobs and funding charities. Zoning challenges in Broward County. This is where I get a little grassroots. Despite our commitment to sustainability, Second Cycle has faced significant zoning challenges in Broward County. First one is we had to terminate agreements. We have had to terminate multiple agreements due to zoning restrictions and municipalities' unwillingness to consider zoning changes or variances. Item 2, temporary permits. One municipality offered only a 9-month temporary permit, which does not align with our model that provides long-term community resources. Weekend-only operations. Another municipality restricted our operations to weekends only and required our staff donation trailer to be removed during the week. This disrupts service continuity and confuses the public, ultimately reducing donations. Exclusive agreements. One municipality has an exclusive agreement with a single clothing bin operator, preventing us to operate a staffed and more managed donation alternative. Clothing bin policy only. Another municipality only permits unstaffed clothing bins, which lack security oversight and community engagement, factors that are core to our model. Number 6, progressive collaboration. On a positive note, one municipality has embraced our model, and it's considering amending its code to permit all use. This forward-thinking approach positions them as a leader in sustainability amongst Broward County municipalities. We will work diligently with them to address their concern and craft our program to become a resource to their residents. I'd just like to mention briefly here, legislative developments, California Responsible Textile Recovery Act. At the same time, momentum for textile recycling is growing nationwide. California has recently enacted the Responsible Textile Recovery Act of 2024, the first law of its kind in the U.S. This legislation requires clothing manufacturers to take responsibility for the end life management of their textiles, including collection, recycling, and reuse. By 2026, producers will need to form a producer responsibility organization to oversee collection programs with the full stewardship system in place by 2030. This policy underscores the increasing recognition and need for sustainable solutions in the textile industry, solutions that Second Cycle is already implementing. Call to action. While cities and states take action on textile waste, now is the time for Broward County to embrace sustainable solutions. By modernizing zoning regulations, we can create an environment that supports responsible textile donation and recycling. Second Cycle is committed to being a partner in this effort, offering a proven model that benefits the environment, supports charitable causes, and provides economic value to communities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Very efficient. Two comments. One, part of the challenge I think that has been presented is the Wild West operation of the charities, putting bins anywhere and everywhere they want.
Yes.
Without any permitting, without any oversight, without any collection standards. And it caused a lot of municipalities, and Sunrise is one, to completely shut that down. We could not get control of it.
Yeah.
And it continues to this day. And so we continue to cite despite that. So my related comment would be, I would welcome, and I'm sure the members would, any model ordinance you think that you have in place that can address the societal issues, the zoning issues, the issues that are attendant to just putting these everywhere.
Yeah.
Because I think we share, and I think the points you raised are shared by all of the member municipalities. It's just been unmanageable. So
They
we look
ruined our
forward
industry.
to seeing that.
Yeah. The road bins have ruined our
Yeah.
kind of our industry.
So if you have a model ordinance, if you would send that to the executive director, and we'll make sure to
Totally.
Distribute that throughout to all the members, including the unincorporated Broward.
That would be great.
Okay. Other questions, member right now?
You just mentioned you're working with one municipality. I'm just curious.
We're in the zoning process. We've done
With who? Do you not want to say that?
I don't, it's not guaranteed, the zoning process, or the approval. We've had conversations with city council. We've submitted our application and we've gotten it past the design review committee, and we're going to planning and zoning. I'm happy to share it kind of offline, off the record, just because I don't want to jinx a city council hearing or vote that may or may not happen, but.
Totally. Well, I was interested because I think the chair spoke correctly. I think all of us struggle with these in general, and I was interested in the process, but I will stand down on that.
No,
question.
Share here, because what happens at the Solid Waste Authority stays at Solid Waste. Number two, ham, safe space.
Oh, I can't wait to see that on TikTok.
I'm just curious, one of the surprises through this whole process has been the amount of textiles that go through the solid waste system. So are there any projections, like if this could be done in a way that's satisfactory to municipalities, the tonnage that could be removed from the stream?
We don't have any projections because we don't necessarily operate. We operate a home pickup program, so I can get what we collect from Broward County on our home pickup program. So you might see the trucks driving around Vietnam Veterans of America. That's also a division of M&M Thrift. So I can get that number, what we pick up at people's homes, but it's a little skewed because some people, they don't want you going into their home. They don't, they want their privacy and all that. But I can get what we do collect from them. And it's also, we collect household goods too. So golf clubs, bikes, kids' toys, dish sets, different things like that. So we do have that component also, but I can get and provide Todd that information.
Member Horland.
Quickly, I don't want to jinx you, Sal, but Sal and I have had a long phone conversation about this because I was a council member in the city of Plantation several years ago who tightened up the code to ban those collection units in our city. And I've had mixed feelings about it, but there is a proposed ordinance change in the city of Plantation. I don't know which way it'll go because I feel very strongly about getting textiles out of the landfill, but I think that it would have to be something very uniform because while second cycles units do look much better than the bins that we've seen around our county, I think it's still something that we need to do a deeper dive into. So City of Plantation is looking at the code change as of now.
I know a person who does this in Jersey, and what they've done is they put cameras on them because one of the big problems is people throwing everything there.
Yeah.
And it's just becoming a mess. And with the cameras, they're able to maintain it over a daily basis, see if there's a mess in front of it, to get away from that horror looking of everything being dumped in front of it. So if there's an opportunity for some kind of an ordinance or something to clean it up so it doesn't become a pigsty in the area,
yes,
that would probably help a lot of people who got rid of it, like our city, because of that.
Yeah, totally. Our units, and as part of the plantation ordinances, is they have security cameras on them. They have lights. 24-hour monitoring, and they're staffed every day. They're also supported by a fleet of trucks, which is part of our home pickup program. So effectively, you're going to get the guy that's going to dump his mattress there at midnight. Like, it's just the thing. But we will be there at 9 to pick it up, either put it in the trailer temporarily or have a truck there to pick it up. So I think because we're staffed, it alleviates it alleviates the mess. I mean, that's those guys' job is that. We've also implemented, which we'll be presenting to Plantation, a night drop off, so that if somebody does come after hours on those days, there'll be a drop off slot.
And you may have covered this. I was out for just a moment, so I apologize. But in terms of, it goes to some of the questions earlier, getting the sense of the volume of what the importance of it is. As Member Orland pointed out, I think we all share the idea of getting textiles out of the landfill. I don't think we fully understand the scope of that, and the data for that makes it hard sometimes for us to even justify the individual boxes, right? So part of what I hope you and maybe other partners, others are here, to the extent you can provide us, and I know SES has given us some data, but to the extent you can provide us what that represents in the flow.
Totally.
And we know that some of that gets diverted, obviously, to other charities directly. There are people who know how to do that. But if there's, good data, it may not be in Broward, but overall, please provide that to us so that we can help to, assuming there's a model ordinance, be able to point out why this is important.
Excellent. Will do.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any other further questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Filthy Organics and then Sustainable Generation.
Appreciate it. All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Dustin Du Bois. I'm the owner of Filthy Organics. Real quick, I brought sample compost bags for everybody here on the committee, but also in the crowd. They're on the back there, and there's also a cart. So if you're interested, feel free to take it.
The city attorneys and county attorneys are having a conniption right now, trying to understand the value of the compost of the bag.
The county already paid for it, so this is leftover from Water Matters Day giveaway. So
Free to everybody.
No conflict.
Anytime the county's willing to pay, I accept.
No conflict. All right, so
Dustin, the floor is yours.
So Filthy Organics, we're a Broward County small business enterprise. We're also certified as a disabled veteran-owned small business. Myself, born and raised here in Broward County. Went to school at Highlands Christian. After high school, joined the service, did 5 years in the Navy as a special warfare combatant craft crewman. Fast boats and big guns, perfect job for a Florida boy. Got out, came back into the family business doing construction. And a couple of years after that, my wife and I moved out west. For us, growing up on the east side, out west is like power line. But we moved out west. We're in a piece of unincorporated Broward now. Got some land, and my neighbors quickly gave me chickens. And I guess I'm gonna have to bounce around. So they gave us chickens, and I found out real quick the chickens are just like pigs. They eat everything. So I went to the local grocery store, who quickly told me no, I couldn't have their food scraps. It had to go to the landfill. So started doing some research, and that's when I found out what a large percentage of our waste stream was made up of compostable material. I was a little disgusted by that, but also saw, hey, that's an opportunity. So we gave it a shot. So what we do is we take organic waste, both yard waste and food waste, and we recycle it into a nutrient-rich soil amendment called compost. So composting is not new. It's just kind of new here in South Florida. So a lot of people don't know kind of what goes into it, right? But you can compost just about anything that's organically based, right? We kind of tell people as long as it's not paper, as long as it's not plastic or metal, we can compost it. So food waste, manure, yard waste, and then biosolids, which is human manure. We try and get people to understand that these feedstocks, it's a resource, not a waste material at the end of the day. So different ways of composting. You got commercial and community scale. Community scale is just smaller, but effectively the same methods as the larger side of it. So what's nice about it is you've got a wide range of feedstocks, like I showed you in the last slide, that can go into that composting process. And there's two main processes with that. There's turned windrow, and then there's aerated static pile. There's also in-vessel for smaller scale stuff, and then biodigesting, which is not really composting, but it's another good way to deal with your organic materials.
So on the commercial side, you got turn windrow. It's a process utilizes that big machine is a compost turner, big long windrows, and it's low sophistication, but it requires a lot of space, as you can tell on this, right, to do a lot of material. The federal government dictates or regulates the temperatures on there, and they call it the process to further reduce pathogens. So for turned windrow, that has to maintain those temperatures for 15 consecutive days. At that point, they say it's clean. There's no no weed seeds in there, no bad microbes, etc. Aerated static pile is slightly more sophisticated, but still not complicated. It's a much more efficient use of the land. You don't have to have it spread out like you do for the turn windrow. I tell people it's kind of a set it and forget it. You don't have to turn it with the machine mechanically as it's going through that phase. Because of that, the regulations say we only have to reach PFRP for 3 consecutive days. So it's a little bit faster process of handling this material. There's different ways of doing it. There's negative airflow where you actually suck the air through the pile. And then there's positive airflow where you're pumping air into. And the purpose of the turning of the pile mechanically is the same as the blowing air, right? It's to feed those microbes with the oxygen in there. There's also covered pile systems, which you'll see, I think, after me. And then there's open, and you can either do it in big, long heaps or you can do it in bunkers, however organized you want to get it. Once you're done with the composting phase, the actual composting phase, you have to screen the material. You size reduced it, and it depends on what industry is going to be utilizing your compost to where you want to screen it, right? Golf courses want it screened very fine. You know, landscape and agriculture may be able to do a much larger screening on there, so it goes faster. But everything that comes out of the screening process, the overs, is completely recycled, right? You just put it back into the process, right? So this is a true circular system, right? Nothing goes to waste at the end of the day except for the contamination that you're going to pull out of there. Uses for compost, everything from your backyard garden to commercial farms. Stormwater and erosion control is a big use for it. Obviously, landscapers is a GC. Every project I got to put topsoil down before I sod everything. And then soil restoration and amending the soil. One of the places we're working with right now is North Broward Prep. They use our compost on their sports fields, so it reduces their need for water, but also chemical fertilizers, which is good for everybody there. Challenges to composting, certainly not roadblocks, they're just challenges. Soil separation, everybody talks about that. It's an issue. But there's a lot of entities, not just the composters themselves, but there's kind of consultant entities that will help train commercial and residential folks on how to source separate properly. The other issue is obviously land, location, zoning, and size. You know, we're tough here. We're on an island, Broward. But if you're creative, you can find some spots to do it. And it depends on the type of material that you're composting as well. And then permitting, local and state. So one of the current programs we've got right now, some of you may have heard of it, the DFB Compost Pilot. That's a USDA funded grant from 22 that covered the cost of 100 households and 5 commercial businesses for about 1.5 years. We're coming towards the end of that now, but we've composted about 120,000 pounds of food waste over the last year, almost 1.5 years with them. So we were just awarded the second round of the grant. We just got word of it, and the money for that is going to go to build out a compost facility on Deerfield Beach's property and also set it up as a triple P so that it's a reoccurring operation contract for us on that. I don't know what happened to my picture there, but Fort Lauderdale seaweed, we're working through the details right now, but we're going to run a large-scale pilot composting the seaweed for the city of Fort Lauderdale as well. And we're going to be using a covered ASP system on there. That system is provided by Sustainable Generation. Dan will tell you more about that in a little bit. So some of our current clients right now, handful of you guys in here we're working with already. Happy to add more to that list. So our capacity right now, we're relocating our site. We've been doing it, you know, again, I live in some acreage, but we've been doing it in our backyard under a limit of 100 yards at any time on the site, but we've leased another piece of land, about 1 acre. So our capacity there is between 10 and 15,000 tons per year. A couple of years ago, I bought some land in LaBelle with the intent of opening up a facility up there. Our capacity on that, utilizing different technology, we can do about 200 to 300,000 tons a year out there. The DFB compost site, we got between 1,500 and 3,000 tons a year is the intent on that site. And then the seaweed site, another 10 to 15,000 tons a year, assuming that pilot goes well. And really the only concern with that is, what the finished product's going to look like on that. And then the opportunities are public-private partnerships, right? The municipalities, both the county and the cities, you guys got a lot of land that may not stick out to you, but if you're creative, you can make it work. And again, depending on the type of material you're processing on, it makes it easier one way or the other. Sorry, I had updated my slides, didn't get it to Todd in time. So I just wanted to point out, for us, we're super flexible and creative. We really like to help find solutions with people. It's one of the things I'm good at, I think, especially as a general contractor. We got the state of Florida to put it in writing and confirm that composting counts towards your recycling credits, even though it's not obvious when you're looking at the stuff. So that's super helpful. And then there's been a lot of talk from the different landfills around here about composting sites on there. We'd be happy to partner with them and actually do the operation. I think I'm the only one here that actually wants to do it. So that's about it for me.
All right, Dustin, thank you. A few questions. You talked about the challenges. I don't want to go through them in detail. It's probably too much for this conversation today for sure. But in terms of the source separation challenge, can you just elucidate a little bit how you dealt with that in the USDA grant for those limited households and commercial?
A lot of education, right? So videos, the DFB program, it's an opt-in, right? So on the residential, we didn't just take anybody. You had to want to be part of it, right? Which I think is huge. Even outside of the DFB program, we have paying subscribers for it, right? And so it's people that want to do it, right? Residential is tough, but we also hosted in-person training for all those folks. And it's just constantly pinging people, right? Different stuff. And through our software that we use to track, we can ping people when they're putting the wrong stuff in, as well. So it's
how did you do that? What was the process to know a particular household was putting in the wrong stuff?
So we have an app, right? Good Lord, a tracking app, right? That does our routing software. So for every residence that we collect from, we weigh the material, but we also open it up and we look at it before we take it, right? So if it has obvious contamination in there, we'll take a photo, and through the app, we can notify the participant. And we've only had to offboard like 3 or 4 people that just couldn't get it.
Right. So you were handling the collection side of that as well?
Correct. Yeah.
All right. It's a whole separate discussion. You said that what you generated out of that was 120,000 pounds?
That's what we've processed, right? That's the intake. At the end of the day, you end up with about 30% by volume of finished compost.
But the intake's what's important, right? Because that's not going to. That was for how many households and commercial business?
So for the DFB program, it's 100 households and 5 commercial establishments.
And 120,000 pounds over what period of time?
About 14 months.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yep. Let's go around the table. Member Horland.
Yes, thank you, Dustin. I think so many of us have been talking about composting for a while, and we're excited to see how your business has expanded, and we hope to be one of those municipalities joining you.
Me too.
Can you talk a little bit about paper?
Okay.
Are you taking any coated paper?
We're not taking any coated paper.
Okay.
Right now, we're trying to frankly stay away from paper just because it's so confusing for people.
Right.
It's hard enough to get them to, take the stickers off their fruit before they put it in there. So, yeah.
Because that was going to lead to my question about the potential contamination with PFAS and microplastics and things like that. So how are you handling that other than not taking the coated paper?
We're working with UF right now on some
Okay.
studies for PFAS contamination and seeing what it is. The reality is like we don't add PFAS to the
Right.
to the process, right?
Can't control it
It's
completely.
coming from our intake at the end of the day. But what they are finding is that most of the PFAS exists actually in the biosolids compost, less in the food waste and yard waste compost. Yard waste, I don't think you have any issue with.
Right, especially when we're using it for home gardens or agriculture, and I think that would be the concern. What about smell?
So smell is, when it's done right, smell is not an issue.
Okay.
A few folks here have been to my site.
Mhm.
They don't believe me until they're actually standing with it. They go, "You weren't joking. It actually doesn't smell." So look, the only time that it does smell, right, is when we're emptying the containers out. We empty it onto a bed of dry mulch, so it immediately sucks up that moisture. And once we mix it, we set it in the piles. We actually cover it with another layer of just straight mulch as a carbon filter. But once it gets up to temperature too, it's not a problem. And again, my wife's let me do it in my backyard for the last 3 years. So.
Okay, thank you, Dustin.
Yeah.
All right, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Dustin. In LaBelle, you were having some challenges on zoning, and have you gotten over those?
So we haven't gotten over them, right? But we're going to get around them if we need to. Okay. So it's at the end of the day, they can't stop us from composting. They can only stop us from selling the compost off the site. At the end of the day, it's an agricultural use, but we are right now in Tallahassee pushing a bill that clarifies compost as a farm product, and it'll end that problem.
Do you know what bill number that is?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what bill number?
I can get it to you. I don't know off the top of my head.
And then you're working at a school right now, so?
We're working at North Broward Prep.
Do you know how much is coming out of there?
About 2,500 pounds a week right now, and they're actually expanding it. They want to add their lower school to the program starting first of next month.
2,500 pounds a week?
Yeah.
And that's one campus.
Right.
It's one
And how many-
small school.
Do you know how many
Very-
kids are in, do you know how many kids are in that school?
I can get you that information. I don't.
800 or 900, okay. Because that's what we're trying to figure out with the schools.
What's nice about their school is that they've eliminated any trash cans in their cafeteria, right? So everything goes through the dish line, and so they're making sure that they keep the contamination out of it
They're
that
doing
way.
themselves.
Yeah.
The kids will probably be very picky about
Yeah,
it.
so look, the kind of the post-consumer side of things is always tough in a restaurant, in a kitchen, a cafeteria, stuff like that. But the back of the house is really the low-hanging fruit when it comes to food waste.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, thanks.
Have you had discussions with the school board yet?
We've talked to a few schools, but not the school board directly. So.
All right. Remember right up.
Mr. Vice Chair, this is going to give you some answers to the question. My wife teaches at that school. She's a kindergarten teacher at that school, and they have trained kindergartners to take out food waste in the lower school, which they've essentially educated the kids to do. Dustin, I'd like you to go into a little more about what you're doing at that school in terms of what they're giving you and what you're giving back, only because I believe it may not be, it's not a county school, it's a private school. It should be the model for what we're doing at our schools and how we're educating our children. So Dustin, just go into a little bit more of that. They have staff and really committed to it. So could you do that?
I'll try. There's there's dedicated staff that we deal with. They also are part of an organization called Chartwells, who I actually built for on the construction side. But Chartwells runs their food service facility on that, right? So Chartwells is on board as well. They had a waste not program, so they were already setting aside some food waste, but this is a whole new thing, right? So we go in, we work with the chef, right, to understand what can and can't go in. And frankly, for us, there's very little rules. Again, it's all type of food waste we can take, so it's not complicated. But we're doing about 4 64-gallon toters a week, right? And we wheel them in, wheel them out. We're having to increase it, frankly, because they're overfilling the things. But so far, we've given back about almost 9 cubic yards of finished compost, and they're using it. They're spreading it on their ball fields, and they're also doing some gardening in the back as well. Did that answer your question?
Okay. It did. And at school, AJ, it's got about 1,400 kids.
Can I ask one thing real quick? Because I think the food that goes there, and this is a little different with the school board. School board's having to get certain kind of food that does have some plastic on it that's required by government stuff. And the school board's having to look at that and see if they can find a different way of getting food that doesn't have any of that. I'm thinking that the people that get the food there, it sounds like it's obviously not the regular food that's going.
It's still cafeteria style food.
You can separate. It's source separation is really what we're
So
talking
really what the teachers are educated from, and I know this just because they're rolling into lower school, which is essentially K through 5.
Right.
These teachers, my wife is a kindergarten teacher, has kindergartners identifying what is going to a different, when you're cleaning off your tray, what's going where.
Right. I'm just one. It'd be interesting to compare where they're getting the food and what food's being used and what the packaging mainly is what it comes down to.
We're at 15 minutes. So
Okay,
go ahead.
sorry.
Yeah. Is it on?
Oh, there we go. As you get much more volume, right, there's machines, depackagers that are built strictly for that purpose, right, at the end of the day, to make a clean stream. And one thing I'm sorry I forgot to mention, though, is so if you can compost just yard waste, right, very easily, it's a very rapid setup and cheap, right? So if you want to get yard waste composting going, we can do it in no time and for very little cost.
Okay, member Shuham, then member Mead.
So great presentation. I guess my first comment with respect to the school board is what you were saying about the cafeteria staff is integral to the composting.
Right.
So it's something to talk to the school board about when they're letting food contracts, that those contracts would have to include an obligation on the part of the food vendor to participate in the composting. So that's just a comment. But my question is, we've talked so much about composting here, and yet when we hear from you and others, it's so small because of the demands for acreage. What's happening in the industry to allow affordable, large-scale composting?
You got to get volume, right? And you got to get the space to do it at the end of the day. And you got to get creative. I mean, I don't know how to answer that other than we're all just kind of bootstrapping it right now, right? We're betting on the fact that the county, right, or South Florida as a whole is going to accept our goals and our industry, and so that we can scale things up.
Have you ever done the math on, hypothetically, every household in Broward is composting? How many acres do you need to compost it?
It depends on the technology that you're using. But we've talked to some of the different technology providers, right? I mean, we could, at the end of the day, if you took Broward's 1.2 million tons of compostable material a year, right, you could do that on 100 acres, right? But you can also do it on smaller parcels as well.
So for every household in Broward to compost annually, you would only need 100 acres?
Yep, depending on the technology you use, yes.
Being one of the two that you described here, or some other method?
It could be one of the ones that's coming after me to present to you.
Okay, thank you. That's,
Remember me?
That's amazing.
He can give you better examples of their systems in places like San Diego and the volumes that they're processing and their acreage.
Thanks,
Remember me?
Colin.
Thank you, Chair. I think we're all on board with the fact that we need schools to do a better job with their composting, which brings us to question of mixture of wet and dry. Can you go into that a little bit more and what might be too much or too little?
As far as the type of material, well, so for us, again, with the food waste, we mix it with yard waste. It's about a 50-50 mix. If it's super wet, you just add some more yard waste to it, right? The browns and the greens, the nitrogen and the carbon. So it's kind of I guess it's a science, right? But you just experience doing it. So
okay, so
I've not run into a problem with material being too wet, right? I'm generally having to add moisture still to my mix.
Okay. All right, thank you, Justin. Appreciate it. All right, sustainable generation and then Reworld.
Well, thank you for having me here today. My name is Dan Collins. I'm a organics consultant representing Sustainable Generation today. My background is wastewater. I spent 31 years working for Chicago, managing the biosolids program. And before I left there in 2017, we began a composting program to move the material from a Class B land application program to a Class A material that could be used on golf courses, on ball fields, like, similar to what Dustin had showed from Filthy Organics. So I'll advance this. Okay, so I really appreciate being here. There's been a lot of talk about composting. Previous speakers, MRFs, landfills, haulers, the synergies in the room are great. I'd love to talk to every one of you because there are opportunities for us to work together to provide solutions for the Solid Waste Authority here in Broward County. Composting has been around for generations. It's nothing new. Anybody can do it. People do it in their backyards. They could do it on small scale. You could also do it in very large scale. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I believe the solution to all the Solid Waste Authority's issues of how do you plan for the next 40 years, I'm a big believer in diversification. So in Chicago, I started a composting program, but I also made sure we are also pelletizing. We are doing different things with the biosolids in order, if something went down, you had another plan of action. So landfills, they work. We're running out of space in our landfills here. Composting with Sustainable Generation, which is a covered aerated static pile. So we're pushing air into the compost heaps. We're also covering it with a Gore cover, which is a membrane, semi-permeable membrane, which allows water vapor to escape, but not water molecules. That's really important. And the reason for that is we're controlling the moisture. Moisture is important to composting. You want to give the microbes enough moisture to be able to do what they do. And that's generate heat. That's, kill off the pathogens. So Designing a facility with sustainable generation could be mobile. It could be full infrastructure with a heap, or it can be bunkers. And I'll, as I advance the slides, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But we'll provide the technology we're a technology supplier. So we don't actually do the composting. We work with operators such as, Denali or Synagro on a large scale, and smaller composters such as Filthy Organics, schools, colleges, things of that nature. So this is basically what a facility would look like when you're thinking a larger scale. We can do between 30 and 45,000 tons of processing of materials on 1 acre, whether it be food waste, biosolids, yard waste. So we've taken windrow operations, especially out west, where air permitting has become a real issue. And say you had a site that was 50 acres, you're now composting on 2 acres. So for landfills, that's real important because landfill space is an issue. So we can help extend the life of landfills via composting the organic matter. So typically what you need for any composting site is an office building. Let's say that with a scale, the material comes in, a place to offload that material, and then a place to mix. When we talk about odors in composting are an issue. Odors are an issue, especially when you're mixing. So I like to see that indoors or a place where you could actually control that air. Then you just move it out. You move it into, does this have a pointer? Yeah. Well, you can't really. Well, the green covers, you would load a bunker, you would cover it with a Gorm cover, and you would just insert a temperature probe. We're considered in vessel technology, US EPA, and you only need 1 temperature probe. That's really important because typically if you have a long windrow, you have temperature probes every, 100 or 200 feet, and you have to go out and measure all the time manually. With ours, it's all, you're operating the system from your phone, from your computer, your laptop. You could be on vacation, checking on things, making adjustments to ensure that you're meeting temperatures for 3 consecutive days. A lot of our clients will start small, and then they'll design for, say, double the capacity. So that grayed out area you see in this facility here was just future capacity. They had the land, they didn't have the money, but they felt, you kind of build it and they will come. So this is a site in Prince George County that I was talking about earlier. This was a complete yard waste operation, 50 acres. They were processing, I don't know the amount of material, but they wanted to bring in food waste. Prince George, they said, well, we want a food waste program here. Will it work? So they decided to pilot, which those white covers are actually faded green covers in the center of the slide there. They started a pilot program just to see if the food waste blended with their leaf waste would work. And they are already selling what they call leaf grow. So it's a great composted product. Then they had found out that mixing the food waste with the yard waste are getting a higher nutrient value product. So now they have leaf grow gold. But then they also learned that they needed a lot less space when they actually put in the infrastructure. So they went from 50 acres down to what you see there is about 2 acres. The land is very valuable for other operations. So that's why I said using this system, you could process up to 45,000 tons on 1 acre. And then you need a little bit of extra space for, storage, for your screening, for your receiving. So I always say for every 1 acre of processing, you need maybe 1 more acre of storage and the mixing and your other operations. So that just helps you to understand, where maybe Dustin's number of 15,000 tons an acre comes from using a system like this. It's closer to 2025. On top of landfill, this is Republic Services in Chula Vista, out in San Diego. It's a landfill, completely mobile, operated with solar power. There was no power up on top of the landfill. They decided, hey, we don't want to run the power. That's too expensive. Can we do it with solar? So they have a bank of solar panels in the upper right-hand corner there. And they actually just moved this entire system, half a mile to another location on the landfill. So this is a lot of bunkers, and now they're actually adding to it. So it's pretty incredible that a system this large running off of solar, that they picked up everything and moved it to another cell on the landfill just because they wanted to use that area for something else. A lot of people will say, well, where are you guys working? Well, we're working in 35 different countries around the world, the Gore cover. We're the sole provider of the cover in North America. So, but we're in 35 different countries, and utilizing this technology is processing over 4 million tons in a year. So we're very large scale. That left picture is out in LA, and it'll process up to 1 million tons a year. That's what they're permitted for. They've only built enough for, I think, 500,000 tons of throughput right now. And then the one on the right is a very clean program, and that's processing 200,000 tons there. So one of the things I always like to say is these are both composting operations that are active. And if you give a hard look at them, you see how clean they are. The material's not blowing around. You don't have birds, you don't have flies. They're just not there. Medium scale is what I call our sweet spot, 20,000 to 100,000 tons. And that top left picture shows a 1 acre pad, and that particular site was processing over 30,000 tons a year. So you have leachate tanks, that lower left picture, that capture the leachate, because people will say, what happens? Composting generates leachate. What do you do with that? Well, the same channel that's supplying the air to the compost is also collecting the leachate water. That leachate water never commingles with stormwater, so you have less water to worry about testing. We've been in discussions with Lee County for a couple of years about helping them capture their leachate. And, you know, when I initially went out there, I said, why do you need us? You have a wonderful windrow operation underneath these canopies. Why are you talking to me? And they said, well, we're being told we have to test our water a lot more because of the runoff. So if they put us in there, we're going to capture that, and then they could reuse it when they build. So what do you do with the leachate? You could put it right back into your pile, make sure your moisture content is where it needs to be, and put the cover on, and it keeps the moisture in the pile. But we're also very small scale too. So we fit into those communities. If you have a community that has a food collection program, we could go as low as 200, tons in a year. So we can grow with you. Whether it's 200 tons a year, 2,000 tons a year, or 1 million tons a year. You could operate it with solar. You could operate it with 3-phase power. There's something for everybody in here, and the weather really doesn't affect what we're doing because the cover keeps the moisture out, but it also keeps the moisture in. We're working with other composting companies now that have called us and said, hey, not only do we have an odor issue, but with the rains that we get periodically down here, how can you help us keep it dry? So we're excited at those opportunities. And last thing I'd like to say is their warehouse is now in St. Petersburg, Florida. So they're a Florida-based company. We've recently done a pilot in Jacksonville, Florida with Sunshine Organics. And hopefully in Fort Lauderdale, there'll be another pilot coming up soon.
All right, thank you. What's your biggest operation in Florida right now? How many acres, and what do you?
We do not have a full-scale facility in Florida at this time.
Okay.
I was fortunate enough to move down here 4 years ago and start their business development down here.
Okay, fair enough. We heard earlier an estimate that to cover the 1.2 million in organics and diverting it out, we need roughly 100 acres, not necessarily all contiguous, but does that sound about right?
I would say for complete operations, yes. That would not only be for a composting pad, but that would also cover your storage, your mixing, your scales, everything that you would need to have a successful operation. I was in the neighborhood of 40 acres, but yeah, 50 acres would probably be 100 acres would be pretty good.
And in the picture you had of LA, that full-size operation there, how many acres was that? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Member Shuham?
So great presentation. First, I want to understand your company, are they the manufacturer of that cover? And that's it?
Gore manufactures the cover. They're out of Germany. Everything else is here, put together in the warehouse in St. Petersburg. It's very simple It's basically the box is the size of, you know, a 6-foot table. And inside that box is a blower and all the controls to turn the blower on and off. Just for an energy footprint, at 10 cents a kilowatt hour, you can process about 30,000 tons for about $6,000 a year. So it's the carbon footprint is very low.
Okay.
So, and then on a 30,000 ton facility, you're looking at maybe 3 full-time employees. I like to say 2.5, but you know, people always say, where do you get the half? And if you have somebody that's operating different sites, they can send, you know, a laborer from site to site to help keep it clean. But your managers can manage it from various sites from a computer.
And in the big facilities like you showed in LA, how is the material being sorted before it gets to you?
The facility in LA is biosolids, so it's actually being trucked from a very long distance away to get there, and then they're utilizing it all over the land. Right around them is all open land. It's a little different here in Florida, so they have no problem utilizing their material. One thing I will say with biosolids, it already has a lot of water. So it's, you know, typically if it's going to go into a composting program, it's 20% solid, so it's 80% water. If you're taking that out to a farm, farmers down here don't need the water. They have plenty of water most of the year. But you're also ruining a lot of farms because all those trucks rut the farms up. If you bring in them compost, those trucks are much lighter, number one. Two, they're not going to need as much because all those nutrients are now compacted into a drier material instead of a wetter material. So their application rates can be far lower.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's also good to keep, you know, keep trucks off the road, let's say.
So putting that facility aside, a large facility using food waste,
Mhm.
how are those municipalities or governments separating out their food waste?
I really can't give you a lot of information on that. I'm only on the back end, but I think from the people in this room, there's probably a lot of people that could probably tell us more about that. Depackaging I've seen the operations. They're not pretty, but the machinery out there to depackage food waste is tremendous. Where they squeeze the ice cream out of containers and they separate the plastics and the styrofoam. I've seen lines of people sorting it by hand after some of this to get the rest of it out.
Mhm.
So I don't know that you can get out 100% of your contaminants, but most of it is gone by the time.
And
you
then
know.
my last question is about the leachate and testing the
Yeah.
waters. Is that in the biosolid?
It's in
Or
all operations.
And do you know in Florida what the requirements are for that?
For leachate testing,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just heard from one of the EPA representatives that was going to be increasing.
And then what are you doing in other states with that water byproduct?
Usually in the wastewater treatment facility, usually will go right back to the headworks. It doesn't impact them at all. It's very little amount of leachate. Other facilities will capture it, put it in tanks. All of our systems are self-contained. So when we say we're capturing that in those channels that supplies the air, it's back pitch. So it goes to a trap and then goes right into a storage tank. So you can either use it right there, or if you have a holding pond, it'll either evaporate or you can have it trucked out to a treatment plant for further processing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, Reworld and then Innova.
Good morning, everyone. So Bill Meredith, I think a lot of people probably know, who's Senior Director and Area Asset Manager. A lot of you haven't met me yet. I'm Tom Coltis, so I head up our infrastructure negative carbon development, which really revolves around some of the assets, energy from waste and other things in the area that we're trying to do. So today's presentation is really, you asked about the challenges, what are the key challenges in regulatory? And I think one of the key challenges, sort of an overarching thing, is almost a misconception of a lot of aspects of energy from waste. So I think the presentation today will focus on that, misconceptions around environmental health, around cost, and just around how it fits within the whole ecosystem. Because everyone who's talking here today has something to add, and it's not an either or. And oftentimes I think it's either this or it's either that. You need some landfill, you need composting, you need everything. So the discussion today is the tip of the iceberg of it, but we'll, in the 10 minutes or so, we'll run through that. And so just in terms of this slide here, I mean, we were Covanta, so I've been with the company for 20 years. We rebranded to Reworld. We were bought by EQT, a purpose-driven private equity firm, actually Swedish-based, very big on sustainability. And one of the drivers that we were kind of given the edict for is go up the waste hierarchy. The waste hierarchy, reuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, recover, which is energy from waste. And then ultimately disposal, because there's always some disposal. So for us, I mean, our business is fully integrated. So we work with partners, to develop solutions for customers that that want recycling. I mean, you always want to do the most you can and get the most value out of waste. Today, we're going to focus on energy from waste. As part of the rebranding, we actually renamed our energy from waste concept. It's thermomechanical treatment facilities. And the reason to do that is to focus on it being a dual purpose facility. It's not a power plant. It's dual purpose, primary purpose to handle waste and also the byproducts of producing energy. So we'll refer to TTF, but that's what it is. So the first slide here, I mean, one of the key things it does, which I think is probably well known, but it's just reducing the volume. So you reduce the volume by about 90%. And what does this do? It reduces the need for landfill. It saves landfill space because we always need, additional capacity. It reduces hauling expenses because you can build these facilities closer to the communities, which is how they're traditionally built around the world, because they provide, local grid power. They're actually less expensive from a waste disposal solution. And that's really a misconception. And I think, there's been a number of studies done. The most recent Miami-Dade just had Arcadis do a study and just comparing landfill per ton cost versus energy from waste per ton cost over time. And even in the near term, and energy from waste beats it, all the time. So as a long-term solution, looking out 10, 20, 40 years, this is a better, more cost-effective solution. The next thing is just around, energy. So on the energy side of it, it is baseload energy, meaning, it's operating 24/7. It has a capacity factor of 90%. So compared to wind and solar, which is intermittent, this helps support grid stability. It's about 9 to 10 times more effective at producing energy from waste than landfill, methane capture. And actually, landfill cannot, even the methane capture systems can't capture all the methane. So you're actually, losing methane. So the effective rate gets even higher. I mean, the efficiency of these plants is way above that. And just generally, it's, as I said, consistent localized power to support the grid. One of the things we're looking at working with FP&L on, some of the developments we're looking at, and the thing that we've done, and we've generally always tried to do, focus on what we do best, find partners, what they do best. And so in terms of developing a solution, we're always looking at bringing in someone who can help support different aspects of it. So one of the arguments against energy from waste is always that, well, you build this big facility and it reduces recycling because all you do is you want to feed the beast, they say, feed the burner, It's actually inconsistent, and even in practice, it's inconsistent. So here on the left is a graph which shows the use of energy from waste in Europe, which is the blue line, and then green is the recycling line, and orange is landfilling. And as you see, from 2000, where energy from waste was, around 15%, as it increased, recycling increased, and they work together. And in the U.S., the energy from waste actual content is we're below 10%. So we're behind where Europe was even in 2000, but there's a lot of room for progress here. And then on the right, we just have the pie charts, which show energy from waste, which is the royal blue color, is essentially a key component, which coincides with recycling, which is in black there. And then you have also, you have composting in the light blue. And really landfilling is almost non-existent in Europe. Now, there's reasons for that. They have less land. And so, but the mix here will be different. But the whole point is that recycling and energy from waste go together. This is just a quick slide on greenhouse gas mitigation technology. I mean, I think when you think of renewable energy, you think it's carbon zero. And for us, it's actually net negative. And we have a life cycle analysis. It's been third-party verified under ISO standards, and it's essentially looking at the effect of methane emissions from a landfill, from waste that would have gone in, but that were avoided because it went to energy from waste. And you look at it over 20 years, and roughly about 2 tons of CO2 are avoided for every ton of MSW, with the average organics content that's in it. But that's about, you're avoiding about 2 tons of CO2 for every ton of waste, and it takes about 2 tons to generate a megawatt hour. So from a greenhouse gas perspective, I mean, renewable energy from an energy from waste facility is actually net negative to the tune of about, 4 tons of CO2 for every megawatt hour. Whereas solar and wind are actually slightly positive on a life cycle basis because you take into account, greenhouse gas impacts from construction, decommissioning, and operation. Just on the health side of it, so there's been numerous health studies that have been done, dozens. I think we have over 80 that we can reference here over the years. And we just put a few of them on here just to identify that this has been looked at time and time again, from what's the health risk, what's coming out of the stack, what are the emissions. I mean, these are highly regulated facilities. They have permit limits, which the permit limits themselves are supposed to be safe to, human health. We operate at significant levels below. I mean, 90+% for most pollutants coming out. But I mean, I think one of the interesting things that was on the first one there, the Miami-Dade just did a study in 2024, and they say the worst case health risk level is below the risk posed by simply walking down the street and inhaling car exhaust, which is true. They said if you're standing on a corner, cars going by, I mean, what you're getting from there is more harmful to you than what's coming out of our stack. What we did here was we took the newest facility that we have in our fleet, and actually that's been built in the US, which is Palm Beach 2. So we took those emission rates and we just overlaid them to general emissions from Broward County around. So it just shows if we built a new TTF, there's about 1 million tons a year is what we base this on. What would the impact be? What would the contribution be to NOx? So you see on NOx, it would be about 2% contribution of what's already there. On VOCs, we're at 0.003%. And then on the next slide, we have PM10 and PM2.5, where you'll see we're at 0.2% and 0.3%. So it's an immaterial additional, kind of adder to these pollutants. And that's aside from the fact that what's actually coming out is well below the emission standards. The other point is just on job creation, economic growth, which I think is also something that gets overlooked. I mean, I think now this was done for a 500,000 ton a year facility. So if you look at the economic impact on the left, I mean, those numbers are probably about double for a 1 million ton a year facility. So you're probably close to $2 billion of economic impact over the construction period between capital investment, between taxes, between economic activity. On an operations perspective, you probably can increase that number by about 50% because you don't quite double the staff and everything. So, but you're probably close, over $50 million of annual economic activity to the greater area. And I think the other key thing here is this economic activity and the benefits, the economic benefits to the counties can be optimized even through a P3 structure. And in Europe, we've built 6 plants over the last 9 years, which have all been financed privately with non-recourse project financing. And in the US, I mean, there's the opportunity to do that, to do the P3 model where the private sector, bears that burden because it's better suited to do that. And the public sector has its obligations, the obligations being, to have the waste delivered to the facility, which provides the revenue stream and also the support on site location. So, but if you take kind of what everyone does best and put it together, we see that as the optimal outcome.
Okay, just a 10-minute warning. You're at your 10-minute mark.
And we're just about finished here.
Yeah,
so
perfect.
This is the last bit. All this is an eco park type concept. So this is something we've looked at before. Actually, Canadivia Nova is going to talk about this as well, because we're working with them as partners. They've actually built 4 out of the 6 plants that we have in Europe. So they're with that, we've got a lot of recent experience with them. But this just shows what's possible where you have this TTF as sort of the centerpiece of a waste ecosystem, which can include then, it can include a MRF, an MPF, anaerobic digestion, biogas recovery, metals recovery. So there's any number of things you can do, but the idea would be to, look at that as influencing the other activities around it. So that's it.
All right, thank you. And one of the themes today was to understand challenges, the new EPA requirements that have been discussed. What does that present as a challenge for new plants?
The MACT rules, which were now delayed a bit, but from our perspective, I mean, we're planning for them. And the facilities that we have been over the years, continuously upgraded. So they're not cost prohibitive for us. I mean, so we're planning for them. We actually see an opportunity because of some of the way we've designed them to, to have even better economics for the facility because of these.
In terms of space requirements and acreage size, say the 500,000 ton, what kind of acreage is necessary?
From a minimum perspective, and we can have, I mean, KVI can talk about this as well, but we would look for comfortably probably 10 acres for something like that, 8 to 10 acres, but really a 20-acre spot makes it, ideal. So somewhere in that range.
We just had one that was available. In terms of timing from, let's assume it's a site that isn't already zoned for, what's it take from the day of a decision through permitting all the way through the flipping the light switch?
The operation, yeah, we would see it as about 7 years roughly. So call it 2 to 3 years permitting and 3 to 4 years construction. You probably wouldn't really start, full construction until you have the permit or you're just about there.
Okay, so perfect. Remember right now.
The eco park that you have vision there, what would it be the hypothetical acreage of that?
That one's on 60 acres.
Okay.
That one's on 60 acres. Yeah.
So hypothetically, if Broward County executed its right to purchase 26 acres, hypothetically, you could build a modification of something like that on 26 acres?
Yes.
And have you hypothetically been any discussions with Broward County and some sort of maybe joint purchase or anything like that? Beam, I'm just curious if the county intends to purchase that land.
Have not had any conversation.
Is that going to be forthcoming?
I think it depends on what the recommendations are here.
Okay. Because I know we're on the kind of a time clock on that. Okay, you answered my questions in regarding acreage. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Ryan.
Thank you, Chair. So you guys said that you work with partners to develop solutions for customers. So who are your partners in the county that you would work with?
Yeah, we do take, right now, we do take some waste up to our lake plant. We're working with JM Family on some of that stuff. And nationally, we work with Coca-Cola, Subaru, Nestle partners.
Okay. Thank you.
In terms of capacity in your Palm Beach location for additional tonnage, do you have any sense of what's available, if at all?
In Palm Beach?
Yeah.
Palm Beach right now is at capacity. So we're looking at building another 1 million ton facility and getting rid of a 750. So the net would be about 250 more.
Okay. Thank you.
Chair, sorry.
Right.
Are your partners in the county? Are you working with Coca-Cola over in the county, or?
With our partners, it depends on the type of waste, because what we were doing is what we call profiled waste, which is a short destruction. Like CVS has medicines that they need to destroy, and so they would ship them up to lakes. So I'm not specifically which customers what we deal with down here, but we do deal with some in our lake facility.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Vice Chair.
Thanks. Which you've built a few in Europe, right?
Yes.
What's the newest one you built there?
So the newest one we've built there's one under construction now that will be operational in about 2.5 years. But the newest one that started operating started operations about 2 years ago.
And where's that?
It's called Newhurst. So it's in it's basically Loughborough, which is As from London, it's about 90 miles north.
Up by Norwich, up by Norwich.
A little bit Norwich, a little bit
Okay.
that way, yeah. But and then near Birmingham, we're building one. We have one near Liverpool under construction, but we also have one in Bedford, one in Scotland, and then we have Dublin, Ireland. So Dublin, Ireland is the first one that went operational in 2018.
And we'd heard from Nancy about the ones that were in Copenhagen. Are those on the same par in terms of emission?
Yes, you know, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Innova and then Wind Waste.
Good morning. My name is John McBurney, and I'm with Canadidia Innova. And first, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to appear this morning and be part of these discussions as you're working on your waste master plan. We don't very often have an opportunity like this, and this is very much appreciated. Just sitting here a few minutes ago, I was thinking about when I used to play football as a kid, and I'd be sitting on the bench and just waiting for the coach to put me in. And here I am. So this is great. Thank you. Canadidia Innova is a global vertically integrated green technology company, and we develop, see if I can get this to work. Okay, so we develop, as a green technology company, we develop circular economy solutions for managing waste. And our technologies enable the conversion of solid and organic waste streams into valuable end commodities like electricity, construction aggregates, metals, compost, liquid fertilizers, and industrial salts. And our anaerobic digester technologies also allow for recovery of renewable methane. And we have some other technologies that create synthesis gas, renewable hydrogen. We've been in business for 90 years. We have 3,000 employees globally. We have over 1,600 reference projects. That's new waste to energy plants. That's anaerobic digester facilities, as well as retrofits of existing waste to energy plants around the globe. We also have offices in 17 countries around the globe, and we are a subsidiary of Canadidia Innova Corporation in Osaka, Japan. There was a question earlier about contract structures and how we like to work. We've done a lot of projects over the years in various forms. We started off many years ago as simply a technology provider. But as we grew and got more involved in different aspects of the projects, it became more important for us to be involved as a P3 arrangement, as a project developer. We create special purpose entities for executing P3 contracts and joint ventures. I can't think of a project right now that we've done in the last 15 years where there was not some form of teaming or joint venture agreement embedded in that contract for us, either with the owner or for us to execute. We're also involved in O&M and retrofit and upgrade services, as noted earlier. As the gentleman before me noted, we've worked with ReWorld's counterpart in Cyclus in the UK as an EPC contractor to carry out their recent investments. We've got a project underway now with them for a 1,500 US ton per day facility, and it's a single combustion line. So, and that's an example of how our technologies have continued to advance over time. We're able to build a larger facility, eliminate the numbers of combustion lines, but we still maintain reliability and availability for the process. I want to emphasize here, a lot of text, but I've got just a limited amount of time. We have proven successful prior experience providing solutions and generating baseload electric power, which, as you know, baseload electric power is becoming more important with the demands of AI data centers and growing populations, which you certainly have here in Florida. We're also a Florida certified general contractor and Florida certified mechanical contractor. Our North American market headquarters is in Knoxville, Tennessee. I don't want to work too much on this one, just that the Von Roll Company, which is the predecessor to the current Swiss company, was formed in 1933. In 1960, a Japanese firm called Hitachi Zosen Corporation became a licensee of our technologies in Japan. They've executed 80 projects over the years using our technologies. In 2011, the Japanese firm, which was a licensee, bought the licensor and continued to make other acquisitions in what we call the waste to X market space for renewable gas technologies, gas upgrading technologies, and excuse me, some other businesses that expanded us horizontally as well as adding to our vertical integration. So we talked a few times today about circularity, and this is a definition I really like from McKinsey. It's a two-part definition, but it refers to optimization of the use of resources, minimization of waste, while also emphasizing sustainability and economic efficiency. We see these butterfly diagrams a lot lately, and I think they're really useful for kind of helping everyone to understand how material flows through a waste management system. We show on the left side renewable resources, on the right side, excuse me, are the finite resources. What's missing from this slide is the final waste disposal and energy recovery. The other diagram I like to see is the waste hierarchy. And something helpful about this is this helps to show how we can better utilize materials and reduce waste by use of best practices through prevention, waste reduction, reuse, and so on. And it is noted at the bottom that there is a last step, and that is disposal. At Canadivia Nova, we like to talk about things in terms of not just waste to energy or landfilling, but more in terms of waste to X. And this is a concept of the plant of the future. My friends before us mentioned the Eco Park concept. It's also called an integrated solid waste management facility or integrated resource recovery facility. The idea here is this is a comprehensive waste recycling, composting, and disposal facility where you have a waste energy plant as the anchor tenant, like in a shopping mall. It's the core technology, but you have co-located with that other complementary and innovative technologies as they are sustainable and economically efficient for a given location. And so these businesses interact with each other. I know the resolution is not very good on this slide, and I apologize for that. I can make a better version available, but looking at the 10 o'clock position, we see an industrial plant that interacts with the waste to energy facility, and it actually can buy heat energy from the waste energy plant. We see this done in a thermal treatment plant in Quebec City, Quebec, where they have 4 combustion lines there, but they sell steam across the street to a paper mill. They don't generate electric power, they just generate process steam. Just below that, there is a material recycling facility, which we believe is very important for any waste management scenario. Coming on around, we have, there's a large graphic there of a anaerobic digester facility. That's a dry AD system, meaning we feed, the feedstock is more of a dry type material like yard waste or food waste. Below that, you see the little green pyramids. Those are a wet anaerobic digester technology that we call compo gas that takes slurries, animal manures, feedstock from distilleries, and other waste. This is a technology typically used for biosolids. Coming on around, you see some greenhouses that use CO2 that we can capture with technologies we have for capturing CO2. The synthesis gas production, you see a little municipality up there. There was a comment made a minute ago about the wide use of waste to energy in Europe. And with a population of 450 million in Europe, they have 520 waste to energy plants. And half of those waste to energy plants are connected to district heating networks. That's a very big thing in Europe. but they're connected to district heating networks. So they're using the waste to generate electric power and to generate heat for businesses and for homes, schools, hospitals, and so on. So this is a concept of waste to X. We tend to think of it the future being no wasted waste. I know zero waste is a very strong discussion topic today. It's a great thing to discuss, and one way to approach that is having no wasted waste, utilizing an arrangement like this. Some things that we don't show is that industrial salts we can recover from air pollution control residues. Also, from water reclamation facilities, we can use the water from those plants for cooling in the power plant. Data centers. Data centers need power, and they need reliable baseload electric power. A data center would be a perfect match for a waste to energy facility, which is going to operate round the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even during hurricanes. So, you can let your mind go with that one. That can support emergency management operations and so on. If you've got continuous power, you got a data center where you can keep information fed in the area and so on. So that's another possibility.
Just you're at your 10-minute mark, just to let you know.
Okay, thank you. Real quick, here's a graphic of a waste to energy facility and the steps of the process that you can look at later, I guess. The same for a dry anaerobic digester system. And then, of course, we have a list of some of the benefits of our waste to X technologies that we'd like to offer for your consideration. And my contact details are provided at the end. If you have any questions, please contact me.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions from the members? All right.
Nope.
Vice Chair.
Yeah. Where's your most recent one that you built?
In Europe. Now we do have there's a plant just down the road from here, the Wind Waste Innovations plant. We provided the combustion rate boiler technology 35 years ago for that facility. But more recently, we completed the largest waste energy plant in Istanbul, Turkey's the largest waste energy plant in Europe. In Istanbul, it's 3,000 metric tons a day. We did that on a joint venture. And then one of the largest waste energy plants in the world is our project in Dubai. And it processes 5,500 metric tons per day of municipal solid waste from the Dubai municipality.
You blew by one slide that was talking about biogas. Was that through? Yeah, that one. Wait, yeah, that one.
One back.
No, this one.
Oh.
Oh, that's from Green Waste. I was wondering if that was from that's not from biosolids.
No, it's not.
Okay.
This uses this is the dry technology. We have a plant in operation in San Luis Obispo, California, that we built as a demonstration plant 8 years ago, to promote the technology here in the U.S. It processes 30,000 tons a day of waste, or yard waste and food waste. Then we have another project in Escondido, California, that was originally built as a 90,000 ton per day facility. It's now being expanded to add 2 more digesters that will be, 90,000 tons a year. They'll add 2 more digesters, and that will be 180,000 tons per year.
Are you finding the retrofits? Like, are you looking at doing retrofitting on some of the facilities in the United States to match the new MAX standards?
So the standards for existing facilities, the new standards are different than the standards for the brand new facilities. Or new facilities versus old facilities are very different. And so we're looking at, the new source performance standards is shown in table 3 on the rule that was promulgated by or proposed by the EPA a year ago. So that, and then as clients ask, then we go in and start a project for retrofitting existing plants to upgrade air pollution control systems as needed.
Is there an estimated cost per burner of what that costs?
No, they're all so different.
They're all so different.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Okay, Wind Waste.
I'm gonna give a copy of this, but in the spirit of recycling, if you don't want to take it with you, please, leave it.
You just email it.
You got electronic. So good morning. I think I'm the last presenter, but I'm Bob Healy with Wind Waste. We run the waste energy facility here in Broward County and have for many years, formerly known as Wheelabrator. A little overview of Wind Waste. Those of you who don't know is that we're a private equity held firm. Waste Management used to own the Wheelabrator facilities and they sold it to a private equity firm. And it was called, the Macquarie now owns it. Macquarie is the infrastructure that owns the facility. We operate 14 waste energy plants throughout the United States, South Broward being one of our larger facilities in the fleet. We also own 3 landfills, 2 in Ohio, 1 in Georgia, an infrastructure, collection trucks, transfer stations, MRFs, rail-sided transfer stations in the Northeast. We're not looking to get in the collection business in Florida. Our only asset in Florida is the South Broward Waste Energy Facility. You can follow along on that sheet if you want to, but I'm going to just deviate to it. But we started operating the South Broward facility in 1981 when it opened. One of the things people always ask us about is, well, it's an old facility. Well, maybe old on the outside, but the inside is continually upgraded on an annual basis. So it's got everything up to state of the, not as a new facility, but state of the art to meet all the environmental standards that we need. We spend about $15 million a year on R&M, repair and maintenance and replacements in the facility to keep it up to standards. We contract with 21 out of 31 municipalities, many of which all are our customers. We're obligated through the county to process 725,000 tons of waste energy. We try to do a little bit more than that. So the facility can process about between 818 and 825,000 tons a year of in any given year, depending on outages and the constitution of the waste. We are contracted with the county and obligated through our 21 municipalities, which are 20 partnered with the county, and then a separate contract with the city of Sunrise, which mirrors identical terms, but they have a separate contract. They're not piggyback to the county contract. We also process or handle 260,000 tons of bulk and C&D waste through those contracts. We don't touch that material. We subcontract out to Waste Management at their 2 facilities on Oaks Road and in Deerfield, with the residue from those facilities going to Monarch Hill. And that's all part of our county contract. Additionally, one of the big things we do, while we can do 820,000 tons, 825,000 tons of MSW, there's a portion of that is very critical and vital to Broward County, is that we handle a lot of APIS, which is international waste out of the airport and Port Everglades at our facility, which needs to be handled in a different way. It's a Coca-Cola can that came in from overseas, or something that came from a ship has to be treated a little bit differently, even though it looks and smells and touches and it looks exactly the same, but because it's APHIS international waste, it has to be handled differently. So we are a vital resource for APHIS USDA waste out of those 2 facilities. And then another big component, which is a good thing for the county, is that we process a lot of pharmaceuticals, outdated pharmaceuticals and special waste to keep those things out of the landfill. So those are all within our capabilities. We have the capacity at the plant at 825,000 tons. There's been long-term discussions. We've had this conversation with the county over the years. There is a potential you could add a 4th boiler to the facility, which would add 250,000 tons of capacity, processing capacity to the facility. And under our contract with the county, and subsequently the piggyback municipalities, the county has the first right of refusal on all that additional capacity. So we're only guaranteed 725 of the 825 we currently have, but if we add another boiler, you would get all that capacity. It would take your capacity up to about 1 million tons a year. One of the other things we do on-site operate the monofill, which is where the ash goes. We do about 600 tons a day of ash. I think, as Reworld mentioned before, we do have a 90% reduction by volume, which equates to a 24% reduction by weight. So when people drive by the monofill right next to our facility at 441 and 595, they see a hill. Looks like a landfill. It's a landfill only for ash. There's no garbage in there. And there is some metals in there, and we are looking at another. We used to do post-combustion metal recycling up on the hill, and we're looking at re-implementing that. We do post-combustion recycling and metal recoveries on site at our facility. We do about 18,000 tons a year of ferrous metal recoveries and about 1,650 tons a year of non-ferrous or aluminum recoveries. We generate 64 megawatts an hour of power, which we sell on the grid. That equates to 46,500 tons, 46,500 megawatts per month. And to put that in layman's terms, that equates to a power generation of about 43,000 homes. In order to offset that, it's the equivalent of 847,000 barrels of oil. So then I want everyone to understand, we are absolutely pro recycling. We are absolutely pro composting. We think there's an opportunity for all those vehicles as the county moves forward with their solid waste plan on a long-term basis. We do have a few municipalities that have stopped curbside recycling or stopped sending it to a processing facility or sending it to our facility. The state of Florida does recognize waste energy as recycling. We don't advocate it. We don't go promote it, but it wants the municipalities that have chosen to do that. It was financially impacted. I think going forward with the operation of a brand new MRF and state-of-the-art MRF in Broward County, I think those cities should go back to doing that. Some of the cities that contacted us, I encourage them to keep it. Don't let it go back to one container. If you put that curbside recycling back into the MSW or solid waste container, you'll never get it back out. So even if you're going to bring it to us, I've encouraged those municipalities to keep it separated so that when the new opportunity presents itself for single stream recycling in a more efficient manner, a more cost-effective manner than what has been in the past, you won't have that struggle to get the people to get back out of there. We've been a long time partner with the county. We pride ourselves on being good community citizens. We like to give back. We do give back to municipalities. We're a big community supporter for many, many different charity and private funded organizations. We sponsor a lot of events in the municipalities that are our partners. As I said, that's 21 of the 31 municipalities in Broward. We strongly believe in being a corporate citizen. This is a two-way street. We're true partners, and we're partners with 21 municipalities. We're partners with the county. At one point, when there were two waste energy facilities, there were 27 of the 31 municipalities that were party to these agreements. The relationship with the county is very strong. Now, we do partner. We used to be owned by Waste Management. We do partner with Waste Management in a lot of way, and our assets kind of complement one another. They do process the Vulcan C&D for us. We do send the MSW that's over and above what we can process at our facility, but we're still contractually obligated. We send it to those 3 waste management transfer stations. Try to work with all the cities and the haulers to make it the most cost efficient, most effective means of getting that waste to those facilities. I monitor that on a daily basis. Who needs to come to us? Who needs to be diverted? Try not to take somebody from the very north end of the county and send them to the southwest part of the county. The waste management's three transfer stations are fairly centrally located, one southwest, one very central, and then one north. So that relationship has been very good. So I think the infrastructure of those assets complements us and our facility very well. If you haven't been to the facility, you've never toured the facility, or it's been a while since you've toured the facility, please contact me. I'd love to have you come out and see it. People get worried that, like I said, it was started out by saying the facility was built in 1991. It's as up to date and state of the art as any facility. We are prepared to the new regulations that come out. We keep we're required. We're continually going to exceed and keep up with the air emissions and pollution control as we go forward. So I think we look forward to a continued relationship as the solid waste working group develops their plan on a go forward basis. We're located centrally in the county. We have no neighborhood opposition. We've been there a long time. One thing I do want to point out, people go by or come by and they see what they think is smoke coming out of there, and that's pollution. A lot of that's water condensation. You know, it's steam. It's not smoke from a fire like an old incinerator that would have been over on Wingate Road or something in the Fort Lauderdale back in the 60s. That's not what it is. But if you haven't been there, please come take a tour. If you haven't been there in a while, please come take a tour. With that, I'll close. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Healy. You came in right at your 10-minute mark, so I appreciate that. Couple quick questions. Generically, late terms, we've been using the term an extra boiler. What's the capacity to expand for that additional 250,000 tons that you were talking about earlier in terms of acreage? And then what would the timetable be if that was something recommended and implemented?
Yeah, no acreage. That facility was built way back when it was designed with 3 boilers, which is 2,250 tons a day. Each boiler's 750 tons a day. The facility was designed to be able to add a 4th boiler with on-site. Time frame is probably 2.5, 3 years. Cost wise, it's not cheap. A couple $100 million, about $200 million. Now, one of the
all the
things,
county needed to hear.
yeah, no, why haven't we done it? Our contract with the county and municipality works on 5-year increments. In order to justify this, you're going to need a longer term contract. You guys are working on the solid waste group plan long term, and that's a 25, 30, 40 year, if I remember correctly, on what it is. That would give you the opportunity to justify. You couldn't add the 4th boiler for a couple $100 million on a 5-year term because you'd have to price at such a point that it wouldn't be economical for you to do so. But once this gets done and you come up with your long range plan, it's something you should be done. It should be done. That takes 250,000 tons out of what we're having to send out of county today.
You said there's no acreage though for it. How do you, there is acreage?
It doesn't need any more acreage.
Okay, sorry, okay.
The building, the structure of the building is built with the opportunity. If you come take that tour, retour, we got to point that out where it goes on site
Okay, perfect.
in the existing building.
And who does the county make the check out to for that?
That would be Win Waste.
Okay. All right, thank you. Member Shuham.
You talked about the ash, and we had 2 other incinerator companies speak. They didn't really, at least I didn't hear. So what happens to the ash?
It gets put in the monofill, which looks like a landfill, contiguous to our, well, not contiguous, there's now a distribution warehouse in between us, on county-owned land that we operate the monofill, and that's what that hill is next to our facility.
And what happens when you max out the height of that hill?
You're done. That's what it is. Now, there's a lot of alternatives being discussed. We've been working with the University of Florida to try to find alternative uses for the ash. We want to initiate some discussion with some landfill owners. The ash, in certain ways, can be used as daily cover on landfills. So we've been exploring opportunities to use alternative uses for ash, but the ash has been being generated. Every waste energy facility generates ash.
I don't know if you know the answer to this, and I should have asked the presenters before you, but do they have an ash byproduct, and what do they do with theirs?
We do have an ash. Well, we have some reuse that we've actually tested with the DOT in Florida, this is probably the only area where we've gotten some traction on that. In the US, generally, they don't reuse it. Our facilities in Europe, it's 100% reused. And
What do
that's
they
just
use it for?
for aggregate, for roads, for tarmac, for cement blocks. We have an advanced metals recycling facility in Wellingborough, which is also sort of maybe like 60 miles north of London, which takes all the ash from that facility I mentioned and recycles it, takes all the metals out, and then it's turned into these forms of aggregate. And that's just the way the regulations are there. The US hasn't accepted that.
Okay, thank you.
We hope they do. That's why we're working with the Townsend Center at the University of Florida, trying to find alternative uses for it. And the most obvious is road basin. That we're going to build roads all the time, right? So if we can just get that state approved on a go forward basis, then.
Yep, thank you.
Vice Chair.
And just for everybody's sake, right now our lease, our contract goes up to 28. And then to 33, we just did something with 30.
We just signed a new amendment to our contract that takes it till 28. And so long as the county and or WIN have 500,000 of municipal tons
Then it
from
goes
our
to
partner
33.
cities, it goes to 33.
Right.
And we've begun discussions to try to tie that back into the land lease, which is 41.
The land lease goes, that was my next question.
Yeah.
Right now it's going 241.
To coincide with the land lease of the property at the waste energy facility, 41 would be the date.
Okay. And the actual temperature, and I'm asking this because there's a certain temperature where PFAS breaks down. The temperature at that facility.
Way beyond my pay grade.
Oh, sorry.
You know the answer to that?
We've also done, so we've completed tests with EPA for actually a few of the facilities that are in Pennsylvania, which, represent all facilities. And the conclusions are, the EPA has to come out with them officially, but they've shown, like 99% destruction of PFAS. I mean, they were super impressed, but in terms of their process for actually publicly issuing it, there's steps to do that. But that's what the results show.
Do that part, but what's the temperature?
Oh, for the
Well,
temperature?
I think it
mean,
has to be
it's like 2000.
Yeah, right around
Yeah,
there.
right around 2000. I mean, I know it's 850 C in centigrade, so like around 2000 or over 2000. So
And just one last question on that. Have they been able to find when they do have the PFAS, the emissions of fluorine, have they been able to capture that yet? Do you know what I'm talking about? That was a one byproduct. They hadn't quite been able to capture on that. Well, they're getting close.
They haven't even determined how to.
yeah,
Okay.
we haven't been able to.
Okay, all right, thanks. All right. That's it.
Member Horland.
Quickly, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Healy, for the presentation. Do you know how many municipalities are sending their recycling to you currently?
I think it's 3.
3. Approximation on tonnage?
I don't know.
So
When
we're
it
not
comes to
talking
us,
a
it
lot.
comes in as declared as MSW.
Okay.
So
Now,
there's
I'm
no way
thinking
for me
about
to know.
future capacity, if we get everybody on a comprehensive recycling plant, that potentially that'll free up some capacity.
Yeah, absolutely.
But not a lot.
Absolutely. We compost, the more we recycle. See, right now we have, through those 20 municipalities, we have about 1 million tons that we're responsible for. So if we do 750, that means 250,000 tons we're diverting to the Okeechobee landfill.
Right.
Okay, through our partnership with Waste Management. So if we take out 50,000 tons, it just means 50,000 less tons that are going to go to the landfill.
Right. And get the county to pay for that extra boiler than we have.
I just say, what it does, quite honestly, is it saves you $27 a ton transportation costs,
Right.
which is the cost to move the MSW from Broward County to the Okeechobee landfill. So the more we can remove from the waste stream,
Mhm.
we're gonna take our 725 or 750 first, and then Waste Management gets what's left through our obligations.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well done.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
All right, that concludes the industry presentations. We'll open it up for any comments. Before I do that, I do want to thank all of the participants who stayed on task today. We came in right at what we thought we would at 3 hours for everyone. And the dialogue was productive and thought-provoking, as you could tell from around the table. It also was interesting to see the vertical integration, not only within companies, but amongst the partners here, and that discussion that seems to permeate all of the presentations, and that is to generate a holistic, vertical, circular process. And I think that has been inspiring this morning. As we go forward, there are certainly those that probably wanted the opportunity to present or didn't have an opportunity to provide all that they could have today. As I outlined earlier, please provide any additional information to the executive directors so that we can pass that through to both SES and to the executive committee. And that's not a one-time thought, as we've seen from, just as an example, the Haulers Association. They've been providing regular correspondence on this, and we find that productive. To the extent that there were requests for model ordinances or draft contract languages or how to build relationships, please provide that as well, because that's a critical component for us moving forward in being able to not only come to some decisions, but in convincing our member partners, our member participants as to what can be done and what needs to be done to do that. I'll open up for a comment to the executive committee. One thing I definitely want to make sure we cover today is just the concept of the next workshop and see if there's a consensus. As outlined at the beginning, I think the next one should have some, and we heard a little bit about it today, some presentations from the big producers. from the hospitals, the port, the airport, the school, cruise line, hospitality industry, big retailers, and we wouldn't want to leave out the Florida Panthers since they're on a hot run right now. But they have presented along with folks like City Furniture and others on what they're doing in their own capacity to keep waste streams within their umbrella, not necessarily pushing it out, but what they've been able to do. And if there's consensus on that, I'll work with the executive director to generate those invites for the next workshop. Yeah. Member Terrebonne.
Thank you, Chair. Is it possible that we can also see if Coca-Cola or Amazon, I'm not sure if Amazon has a location here, but would really like to hear what they do with their boxes and all of their additional waste that they produce.
Gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. We can, any of the big retailer producers, we'll send out an invite to see if they present. We'll follow the general same format here based on the time, make sure we can keep it on task, but that's a great suggestion. Okay. Any further comments on that? Mr. Vice Chair, any comments?
No, that was good.
All right. Yes, sir.
I would just like to thank, to see water containers come this way, you know, both houses to bring our own stuff, but to see the water in non-plastic bottles is a great start. And I just wanted to recognize that. I noticed that earlier. I'm like, it's water. I'm like,
exactly. So it raises a good, it does raise a good point. It does raise a good point that today, while we were discussing really from the curbside to disposal, the one area that we've not been able to really present on and we have the least control on is on the manufacturer side. I know you're touching a little bit on the back end, but that's on the front end as well, what they've done to change packaging. Ultimately, until we can alter and looking at the pyramid where we can maximize prevention in terms of packaging and how things are handled. We can't forget that in this educational effort, we have the least control over that. But to the extent, and I thank Member Terrebonne for raising that, I think the other side of it is what are they doing on the upfront side to begin reducing that to prevent that. So, Member Dunn.
Mr. Chair, thank you for uplifting the education piece. So one of the slides included that pyramid. And I just wanted to say to the executive director and the consultant that it would be great for us to come up with messaging for each of those so that the public is clear about what we can do now. And I know we expressed interest in starting the education piece now. So I'd be curious to know how we can integrate that kind of conversation into our workshops. I think it's critical.
Okay, perfect. All right, if there's no further business, then we'll be able to adjourn early. But yes, Member Rydell.
I mentioned this to the vice chair. I think we have to actually consider some direction here. I think SES is going to agree that we probably need to purchase the land based on the Monarch Hill expansion and land use change. I know Beam just said we got to wait for our final opinion here, but we're on a time clock with that. There's an 18-month trigger event that started when you approved, correct? I'm pretty sure it's Jamie shaking his head. Thank you to the lawyer in the room. So there's a time clock for 18 months to purchase that 26 acres for either the county to purchase it with the intent that the Solid Waste Authority is going to use it. I think we really need to have that discussion or stress to the county that they really need to be on track to purchase this land, because I think that's going to be an asset that's going to be necessary. I see Daniels maybe shook his head yes. I don't know if he's going every which way, but I think, and that's something I'd like to talk more robustly about next time. But I think we really need we need to give direction to, obviously there's a member of the county commissioner to say, we got to purchase that land.
I don't think that's a given. I'll just be honest. I don't think that's a given. I think it's something to look at and take into consideration, but there's numerous options and that's one option.
When government has the ability of purchasing property for future use, I have found in my own municipality, it becomes a no-brainer.
If it's the best place, that's a better determination.
So can I just ask, do you intend to spearhead an effort for the county to purchase that land?
I'm waiting for the final recommendations.
So you're waiting 6 months from now to make that determination?
I mean, there are other options that we should look at.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll take that for what it is. Thank you.
Okay.
Member Ryan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, since we're on the topic of potentially purchasing property through the county, this is my profession. It's what I've done. And from what I've seen, in the county, and even east of 441, industrial land per acre is around $2 million. When you get a little further west, it's like between $1 to $2 million per acre. So if the county could potentially purchase, I think we're looking like what, 10 to 15 acres for a future site, and then come up with a P3 partnership. I think that would be very feasible and well within the county's budget as well. And I'm not even saying that like as a joke, but when is the last time that the county has purchased property for anything?
This last year for the government center.
For the government center? Okay. But we never purchased anything for potential use of, for a landfill or for waste energy or anything like that.
When we bought the Vic, that was the Broward landfill was purchased with that in mind.
Okay. And when was that? That was
Back in the either late 80s.
Yeah, it's a while ago.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to bring that up to the board as
Yeah.
a potential solution.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, there are options floating around.
Okay. Thank you.
Member Kajian.
There are options floating around. That's great. But I would ask anybody in this room, when has land in this county gone down in value over the last 10 years? There's an opportunity to buy a piece of property. And if we don't decide later on, it's not a piece of property that we want, we can always sell it. But it's a land is a valuable asset. You can't make more of it. So if we have an opportunity to get it, whether we use it for this or we use it for something else, I think it's always important to buy land when we can get it.
As we go through this discussion, it does point out that we need to begin funneling some of the concepts here, and we need to be narrowing what we're doing. Parallel to that, I think it's equally, if not more important, to say what we're not going to do. There are a number of municipalities and partners who are watching very closely as to what the recommendations are going to be. And fears of a massive waste energy campus in the southwest area of the county has caused many to be quite worried. And as we move forward, if the idea is that we're not going to do that, and we're going to be looking at something more modest, whether it's a fourth boiler or some other idea of land, we should be working towards that, because we need to be funneling our decisions, beginning to focus what that looks like from a financial capacity, and helping to make sure that we're maintaining community support for what we're doing. So I welcome the concept of what do we do where there's some vacant land, but I also think we need to do the things we can do now. And that's either to send a message of what we're not going to do, begin crafting the ordinances for mandatory C&D, as has been discussed, make sure that we're implementing certain standards right now that can be done before the final puzzle piece. And from the very first moment that Daniel sat down with this board, the concept of addressing what we can now is being encouraged by SCS. And so the quicker we can make some decisions, wherever they may be, I don't want to lose sight that while it's certainly important, the concept of what do you do with the 26 acres, also what do we do with Alpha 250, let's also make sure we're funneling down in our own heads what we're not going to do so that we can continue this process forward. Member Dunn.
Yes, in the last meeting, I uplifted the fact that several cities are currently in negotiations for their contracts. And I think we, through the attorney and the executive director, we agreed that you were going to share language that the municipalities can use now. And I'm just following up to see if that happened.
We're working on that. That's more than just a 2-week process. So we will get working on that.
That's a little bit tight because they're happening now. So do not miss the opportunity, because that's the only leverage we have. And I can't speak any more on that matter, but urgent.
So I would say that that's something we want to do from this end to the ability we can, but we have to rely on our partners in those individual contract cities as well. Not necessarily the cities, but the providers to recognize that we are working towards flow control. And what we want to make sure is that there's a capacity to harness whatever flow control strategies are implemented and that they're not held up because of contraction. So I welcome that. I just, I don't know whether Jamie's going to want to be giving advice on this, and there's each individual contracts, but it's something that each city attorney also needs to be, well, I understand that's far more complex perhaps, and to provide legal advice on what works or doesn't work. But I think it's worthy of an immediate discussion amongst the city attorneys and to the extent that Jamie feels comfortable in trying to address that. But the key other partner are the haulers, the providers that are around the table. They need to say, are they fully engaged in this process of the SWA? And if the SWA decides to implement, how do we make sure that individual participating municipalities are not untethered from that process? So I think it takes a little bit more. I just don't want individual cities say, well, we never heard from the Solid Waste Authority on legal advice on what to put in the contract. I think it requires a lot more effort, and the lawyers around the table, I think, would understand the fear of us providing that legal advice. That being said, I do think that it would be helpful to have a chart of when the individual contracts are coming up, and if each individual city has those coming up, wants to provide their contracts, then we can begin at least talking to Jamie or to the partners.
Yeah, so my understanding was in the direction that was given to the executive director, and Jamie, you weren't in the meeting, but your deputy, was that a conversation was going to be had. And so, and then I gave that linkage to my city attorney, to my city attorney and my city manager. So my point is that there's a willingness to have the conversation. And so we do have in one of the white papers a list already of when other folks' contracts are going to come up. And my fear is that if we don't leverage the opportunity now, then it's going to become a challenge.
I totally agree with you. But what each individual contract says, I don't think we have that inventory, and what needs to be added and where and how is a really complex legal. What I would strongly suggest is I do think, to the extent, Jamie, you can help on a little bit of that. I think the city attorneys need to really, this is a rare moment where they have to be engaged in the SWA issue to say, if we were going to, where, first of all, in the contract would it have to be, and what type of language can the individual hauler, the provider, live with? So I just hesitate that we put this all in the back. I agree we should try to find standard language, but that may be a heavy lift without seeing every contract. And even if you see it, you still got to get with the providers to make sure they're in agreement.
I get that. I think what's concerning me is that it sounds like a conversation wasn't had. And so I would just be cautious about not at least talking to the cities. And that was what I requested when we met weeks ago. And so I thought that it happened, and I never really followed up. So I just want to make sure that's happening.
All right, so I don't know if that happens, but I would encourage individual city attorneys, and that's how we're going to have to do. Jamie?
Yes, Member Dunn, although I can't tell cities what to do, and I'm not going to tell city attorneys what to do. They have to do what they're going to do in their city. I can provide language that the city of Weston used, that I drafted, that I can share with the attorneys, and then they can decide, how they want to handle it. I can do that. I can do that today. I'll make sure. Should I get it out to all of you, or how should we? Or maybe I'll get it to send it to all the governing board members.
Yeah. And I was under the impression that already happened,
Okay.
Jamie. So
I don't believe it has, but I will get on it today.
Member Shuham?
Well, I think that answers it, but we had a workshop recently in Hollywood on solid waste, and this issue came up. And it seemed like it would be relatively simple, that the contract says that, the city and the vendor agree that whatever the solid waste authority decides, we'll negotiate something back then.
I think I said it a little bit
it's
longer, but yeah,
it's a lot more
basically what it
complex than
said.
that.
That's what it should say.
Keep it simple, Jamie.
With the expectation that the county will pay for it, of course. Yeah, I know. All right, anything further? All right, then do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Member Vidal, second by Vice Chair.
Did a presentation today. Thank you.
Thanks, Donnie. Guys, have a safe passage, everybody.
Congrats again, bye.
Good job.